Okay, so let's call the meeting to order at whatever time the clock over there says. 6:31.
Late,
Okay.
sorry.
No, don't. You're almost like perfectly on time. Okay, so I'm gonna skip right over to, so we're gonna start off, and it's not on the agenda right, but we're gonna review the annual meeting, which is under old business. It's like the third line item down. We do that so people can't stay for the whole meeting if they have any questions. So everybody should possibly have the nice little booklet that went out. Does anybody not have that?
There's copies
So we'd like to thank Anita for putting this together for us again this year. I think it really helps to get the word out to people. And we're definitely looking for comments on what people think about the pamphlet. One of the things is, if you look, last year we just put the budget in as a we just did the major headings. So we did more of a budget summary than an individual line item. And this year we try to put the line items in. And some people, it was a little fuzzy just because of the way it came out from Lori's office to Anita to being printed. So we will work on that next year. But if you have any comments about the handbook, please let us know. So if you go to page 5 in your booklet, and it's the warning for the 2020 River Valley Unified School District annual meeting.
It is.
Legal voters of towns of Dover and Wardsboro, Vermont are hereby notified and warned that pursuant to Title 17 VSA Section 2655, they are to meet at the Dover Town Hall in Dover, Vermont on Tuesday, February 11, 2020 at 7 p.m. to act upon the following articles to wit. And there's a note up top at the recommendation of our district clerk that Article 13 to be voted by Australian ballot at town meeting in Dover and at town meeting in Wardsboro on March 3rd, 2020. And those are the election of officers. And both towns, Dover and Wardsboro, had always elected from, Wardsboro had always elected from the floor, and Dover had always elected by ballot. And unfortunately, for the first year, we were required to have everybody elected by ballot for the first time around. But after that, folks, there's booklets up here. We're reviewing we skipped over to town meeting first, or a school district meeting, because we were hoping, there's a meeting booklet.
Do you need one of these?
So we're on page 5 of the booklet. So you'll vote, so from now on, there'll be, if nobody resigns during the year, nobody leaves us, we'll be voting 1 3-year term in Wardsboro and 1 3-year term in Dover from now on, instead of multiple, because we only have 3 in each town. And the ones in Wardsboro will be voted on at your town meeting from the floor. And that, your town clerk told me she thinks it's gonna probably be around 11 a.m. So if you wanna run for the position, maybe be there at 11. If you don't wanna run, make sure you leave about 10:55 so nobody can pick on you. And in Dover, unfortunately, you had to be on a ballot. So you don't get a chance to run out there. You actually have to work a little bit to get it. And then, because this year is a presidential election in Dover, that you start voting at 7, what time, Andy?
7 a.m.
7 a.m. So you can actually vote early. Like in Chicago, vote early and vote often. So Article 1 is to elect a moderator to serve for the fiscal year July 1, 2020 to June 30th, and to set a stipend at $200 per meeting for the moderator. Does anybody know who our moderator is besides the school board?
Really?
Yeah, not you though.
Besides the school board.
So Dr. Backus is the school district moderator, and he couldn't make last meeting or this meeting. He will be here next Tuesday, and he would like to serve again if the voters would so have him. Our second article is to elect a clerk. Is there any questions or comments on that article? Article 2 is to elect a clerk to serve for the fiscal year July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021, and a stipend of $2,400 for the clerk. When we first formed the district, we talked to both town clerks, Wardsboro Town Clerk Jackie and Andy in Dover. Jackie didn't have any interest really in serving as the district clerk, so we told Andy he kind of had to, because we thought it'd be important to have one of the town clerks serve. And I believe Andy said he'd run again for us, because we made his life easy. He doesn't have to commingle ballots anymore. To elect a treasurer to serve for the fiscal year July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021, and set a stipend of $2,400 for the treasurer. And this, currently Marco Tellini, the treasurer in the town of Dover, ran for that and would like to serve again too. Article 4 is to elect 3 auditors to serve from July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021, and set a stipend of $200 per meeting for the auditors. So we have 3 auditors, and Andrew's gonna help me because I mess up on a couple of them.
Oh, gosh.
So we have a lady by the name of, who just got appointed at the last meeting,
Danielle.
Salway. And then we also have the pastor at the Eastover Baptist Church,
McIntyre, Bob McIntyre.
Bob McIntyre, and Randy Capitani, who actually
Yeah.
served on the, he served on the committee, the Act 46 merger committee, and was really active in the beginning. So those are your 3 auditors. As far as we know, none of them have said that they do not want to serve. So I think all of them would serve again if somebody was to make a motion to appoint them or elect them.
Are there term limits?
Yeah, you can only do it till you die, and after you're dead, you're not allowed to run anymore.
That's the deal.
Yeah, no, there really isn't any term limits.
Okay.
Do you have interest in a position?
I very well could. I'm pretty new to the community, so I'm just getting involved and
Yeah.
possibly could show an interest.
So if whatever town you're from, if you're from Wardsboro, you just have to be at town meeting if you want to throw your hat in the ring for a school board position. In Dover, you have to actually file a petition, which requires a certain number of voters. I think it's usually 12. This year it was 12. It depends on the total number of voters. The Article 1, 2, and 3, those are voted from the floor at the annual school district meeting, which is, this year it's next week, but it's, we're hoping to change it as we go further on. So if you want to serve in one of those, you just have to ask somebody to nominate you from the floor at the meeting, and then you would, a nomination in a second, and then there would be a vote.
Okay. Thank
Okay?
you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, sir. Everybody good up to Article 5? So Article 5 is to pay your school board, and we're looking at directors at $2,000 and the chair at $2,500, which is the same as this year. And all those numbers up top, the $200 per meeting, the $2,400 for the clerk treasurer, and $200 for the auditors, those are the same amount as we are currently doing for this year. And then Article 6, so the voters approve mileage reimbursement at the federal reimbursement rate for the month in which the mileage occurred. And we do that because, the numbers bounce around quite a bit depending on, where a lot of different things are. So the government sets a mileage reimbursement rate every month for government workers, so that's what we use for our number. It's currently, Bill, I believe around 50 cents,
0.575.
so 57.5 cents.
Got it.
So it's really good if you got an electric car. If you've got a big truck, it's not as good. Everybody okay with that one? Article 7, so the voters of the River Valley Unified School District authorize school directors to withdraw money from the reserve fund to offset the homestead tax rate, but not more than $200,000. So both Dover and Wardsboro came into this unified district with a few $100,000 in reserves, close to $1 million altogether. When we get to Article 10, we're going to talk about, so because we became a new district, both Dover and Wardsboro had their money assigned to different reserve areas or for certain purposes. And because we became a new district, what the law said is on July 1st of 2020, all our money had to go into one pot. So last year, you folks voted $200,000 to help offset the tax rate, which is 3 to 5 cents on the homestead tax rate, depending on a lot of other factors that aren't settled yet, including what the yield is and how much the state's gonna give and how much you're gonna pay for a lot of their categorical grants. So what we try to shoot for is a tax rate that's fairly similar to the previous year's tax rate, so there isn't a lot of ups and downs. The reserve fund is money that you've already raised, or has already been raised by the voters, so you don't have to pay tax on it again. And the reason we look for 200,000 is that's what we've done the last few years. It doesn't take all the reserve money all in one year, and it doesn't make that big a tax rate difference. It's not like we're dropping the tax rate 20 cents, and next year, you know, if we don't have any reserve money, you know, then you're gonna have an instant increase of 20 cents on the homestead tax rate. So that's the thought behind that article. It's pretty common. Wardsboro had done it before, Dover's done it before. It's not anything new to the river valleys. Is there any questions about that? Sir?
Is this like Social Security for the tax increase? So that we aren't affected by a tax increase, or is this a tax increase that we have to incur to continue to keep
Okay, so it's not a
2,000
tax
annually?
It's not a tax increase.
Okay.
Okay, so we have money in the reserve fund.
Right.
Okay, we're asking you to take 200,000 and put it against the amount of money we're gonna spend next year. So that means we don't have to raise $200,000 in taxes. So it will be a tax decrease.
It'll prevent an increase.
It will prevent an increase, correct.
I see.
The purpose is to try to level the taxes every year, or try to keep them as level as we possibly can. We really can't do it because, as Rich said, there are so many things that are still not decided on the state level, like what they're going to pay us back, or our common level of appraisals have not come back yet. There's a whole bunch of different things that go into the formula that create the tax rate. So what we've always done in both towns is to keep a little bit of money aside each year, or you know, not take the whole amount that we have from prior years and spend it all at once and decrease the tax rate significantly, which could happen. So what we do is we try to keep the tax rate as level as we can. There's always some sort of an increase or something that comes in at the last minute, but in general, we try to level it off as best possible using those funds.
Last year, we were even moving 200,000. At one point, we were looking at almost a 20-cent tax increase. And but then when the legislature met and they found some one-time money, and they found they increased the yield, how much they give us, and they don't say it's per pupil, but they give us a block grant. So they had increased the block grant. So by the time it was all said and done, I believe last year we were pretty flat on the tax rate. But when we presented the budget in February, we were looking at a fairly significant increase. And this is just one way to help prevent that.
And there are other things too. I mean, it doesn't mean your taxes aren't going to necessarily go up because the rate stays the same. I mean, your appraisal can go up, and things like that can also impact the amount of money that you have to spend every year.
We're allowed to put like half of this into an annuity that had a greater interest and greater gain, so that we could use those funds later, or?
There's really nothing that's paying very well. You know, if you, on a 2-year CD for $250,000.
No, an annuity, not a CD, like an annuity that's paying like 5 or 6% or something greater.
Okay. We can't risk our money, so the only thing we can put our money into is, we can't play games, we can't play the markets, we can't play, and we need to have it fairly liquid, so we need it to be available to us. So the only thing we do, and that our treasurer's done, is we have invested in CDs. At one time, I know in Dover, 15 years ago, we were making close to $50,000 in interest a year. It's not there anymore. There was a city out in California that invested really well in a Madoff fund, and they did really well for a few years, and then they didn't do well at all. So they're still trying to. So we really can't. It's not our money. We can't risk
Still
it.
reveling from the loss, I bet.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Real quick, how does the reserve fund get replenished in future?
So the reserve fund can be replenished by raising taxes to put more money in the reserve fund. So one of the things you need to all understand is that we have a tough time a little bit with our budgets because our budgets aren't really easy. And if you're part of a high school district, if you're a pre-K 12 district, you vote a budget and you're pretty well set there. Both Dover and Wardsboro, and the reason we were able to combine and become a unified school district is we tuition our middle and high school students out. And that's a benefit a lot of people seem to like, but it's also becomes very difficult to plan a budget. So we may say between the two, and I'm just gonna use fictional numbers, we may say there's 100 secondary students, 7 through 12 between Dover and Wardsboro. Depending where those students decide to go, and depending if they stay the full year, and depending if people move in and people move out, is what we actually pay. So right now, we're trying to predict a year and a half out, and I'll get back to your annuity thing in a little
Wow.
bit. So we're trying to predict a year out, saying, okay, next September, when school starts, how many secondary students are there gonna be? Because, there's a lot of people in and out, so we say there's 100. Well, if 10 move out and nobody comes in to replace them, then we have about $170,000 that we planned on spending. We raised the money to spend. You got tax to spend, but we didn't have to spend it. So that would come back to us as a surplus, and you'll see that in another question down. So that's how we replenish the reserve funds sometimes. When you have a specific reserve fund for a project, like we're gonna talk to you in Article 10 about setting aside some of our reserve money to go into a fund for building maintenance. And there's also a fund for transportation for buying school buses. Those sometimes will raise tax money and will say, hey, look, if a school bus costs $100,000, if we have to buy that all in 1 year, it's a little spike in the tax rate. What if we put $10,000 away for 10 years, the bus lasts 10 years, when the bus is no good anymore, we have the money to buy it without changing your tax rate. So there's a couple ways that money gets replenished into the reserve fund. And I have a joke at Dover Town meeting I told for years. So we're trying to predict something a year and a half out, so kind of into your annuity thing. If I knew what was gonna happen a year and a half out, then we probably could know how to invest and tell you exactly what things are gonna be. But unfortunately, we can't do that, because if we could, we probably wouldn't be here. We'd all be some tropical island enjoying our lives, having lots of money come in. So it's kind of a crapshoot for us, really. And, a budget is a baseline. So there's some things we know are gonna be set. We know that we're gonna have so many teachers, and if none of those teachers resign and all resign their contract, we can tell you exactly how much that's gonna cost. We can tell you how much our health insurance is gonna cost. But then we get changes where we may have had a person that was a family plan that's several $1,000s, and a person may come in to replace that person if they left, and that person may have a spouse that has an insurance plan, so we don't spend any money on their health insurance. So there's always variables in the budget. So remember, what we do is, and the way we build a budget, is we go to our two administrators, Tammy and Matt in the back, and they talk with Lori and Bill from central office, and they talk with their staff, and they talk with the people in the school building. They say, what do we need for an educationally sound budget? And they put that all down, and they see how it fits in to a budget. They present that to the board asks questions, we make some changes, and then we have a budget we present to the voters. So, are we okay on the 200,000? So Article 8's the big one. We're gonna ask you to expend $5,680,223, which is the amount the school board is determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $19,868 per equalized pupil. So if you go to page 7 in your book, that starts your budget. And as an overall summary, last year with the Dover and Wardsboro forming the river valleys, we basically, pardon?
I said it's a trick, they're all page 5.
Yeah, exactly. In the book, I think you mean.
Yeah.
Are they all page 5?
Oh, the book. No, sorry.
Not that I
No,
would.
he means because he was.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, in the booklet, so,
They are on
Um,
page 5 in this one.
yeah. That's,
I think Bill's computer automatically makes everything page 1 out of 5. Notice that on a few of your documents.
Are these different? John?
Keep you guys on your toes.
hard.
These
The
are
budget
same?
part is the same. I think this is just the budget, and that just has all of the articles in it.
So,
Okay.
yeah, there's some just budgets, there's some articles, I think that just budgets have blue on them, and the ones in the book have a gray border. But anyways, so the first year of River Valleys, we basically took the Dover budget and Wardsboro budget, put them together, and although Act 46 was supposed to, create some efficiencies and be able to put us together as one building, we're still required to report a lot of stuff to the state by building. So it was some of it was a little bit of a fallacy. Basically, this year, the budget we are presenting to you folks to vote on from our administration, if you were to go to one of the schools, you probably wouldn't see a whole lot of difference. Some of it was just accounting. One of the things is the preschool teacher in Wardsboro also teaches kindergarten. And last year, we just had them under K through 6 teachers, not the preschool. So we took part of their salary and put it into the preschool just for a better accounting. So if somebody said, how much does preschool cost us? We can tell you, okay, you look at these line items and there's your preschool budget. I believe the only staff changes is, last year in Dover, we had proposed there was a teacher to help students that were struggling, and that was gonna be a position within Dover, or within the River Valleys, and it was decided to have that position work through central office. And what we do is we have, in the central office, we have called an agency fund group of educators, and those are people that, like a school, the school band, person that does band for the schools. No school can have a full-time band teacher, there's just not enough need. And it's really hard to get a person to work for half a day or a day a week just during the school year. So what happens is Wyndham Central hires that person as a full-time teacher, and they take their benefits and their salary, and they figure out how much it costs per day or half a day, which is what we call an FTE, full-time equivalency. So if you have that person for 1 day a week in your building, you pay 20% of that person's cost. So Wyndham Central doesn't make any money on them, they don't add any management fee, but it allows us to have better people and people that will stay longer because it's a full-time job with benefits versus a person that maybe works in Wardsboro for a day of the week and then goes up to Winhall and then maybe, goes to Brattleboro. It allows them to have one boss and, work under one contract and have the benefits. And it's worked really well. People have had children with band. We've had several different band instrumental music teachers, and we've always seemed to have good ones. And we wouldn't be able to get that. We also under agency fund utilize some of the librarian staff, some health, nurse. There's all different positions. Some of that moved, and then in Dover, the media person, we used to call them librarians, but now they've expanded their title, and we reduced, that was reduced a little bit in Dover to more fit with the number of students. We've had less students in Dover, so there's a slight reduction there. But if you have a child in either building, you shouldn't see much of a difference between this year, currently, and next year. The exception being, contracts haven't gone out, some teachers may decide to retire, some may move. So it should be pretty similar. Lori's looking at me, I may have missed one.
No.
Nope.
You're doing a great job.
So that's pretty much the budget. Now, the other thing is, we also looked at transportation, and we looked at some other things, and one of the things we were kind of hoping, when they first presented Act 46 to us, we thought we were going to get to invent a new building from the ground up, or a new school structure from the ground up. But unfortunately, the state put so many restrictions on it, we really weren't able to do that. So we basically, the first year we said, have some faith in us. We're gonna take two budgets, put it together. We're gonna have our staff working on some stuff, and we're gonna see what we can do for the following year. One of the things we looked at was a focus in the Wardsboro school, so we did put some money in for the focus, and it was decided by the staff and the voters and the parents and the students that Wardsboro's focus was going to be called STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And we were really impressed because Tammy and her people in Wardsboro did a wonderful job, because we're thinking 2 or 3 years down the road, we would start doing some STEAM projects. And if you look out in the hallway and you've read the Bucketville News here, which is important in Wardsboro, and even the newspapers, they've done a lot of projects. They have a half a day or a full day a week of STEAM. There's a lot of good things going on with it. We're hearing a lot of good reports. And that's all within a few months of us, saying that can be a really good focus. And we felt as a board, and after input from parents in both Wardsboro and Dover, that it would be better if we could have both buildings have different focuses. Because it would be a lot easier for us to justify to the people in Montpelier, the reason we have 2 buildings so close together is because they're totally different. They have different focuses. And it's really a really cool focus, and it's neat because it really complements what Dover does, and Dover complements what Wardsboro does. If you want the international feel, Dover has the IB focus, and if you want the technology and the arts and the maths, there's a good focus of that in Wardsboro. And there is movement allowed, and I'll get to you in 1 sec. There is movement allowed between the buildings. So there is some money in there for that. One of the other things we want to look at was transportation. Was there some savings in transportation? So the other thing that happened with Act 46 is the state of Vermont went to a new accounting system for schools. And we're one of maybe, 13 districts, Laurie?
Probably about that, yeah.
So there's maybe 13 districts that have moved to this new system. Luckily, Lori was able to take some of the grant money we got from the merger of the West River Group and the River Valleys Group, and she was able to put a lot of time and effort into building on the new accounting system. So we're actually we're operating under the new accounting system with this year. There's a lot of other schools that haven't even started it yet, and it wasn't as simple as, push a button and everything transfers over. Lori had several people working a lot of hours, and Lori was a lot afraid because I'd see her come to meetings and her eyes would be bugging out of her head. It was really tough, but we're now operating on that system, so I really feel like we're a leg up. And we're really hoping that next year, Lori's not going to be focusing on trying to get us transferred into this new system, closing out all the old schools, because there were several different, there was a Wardsboro district and a Dover district and a Newfane district and a Newbrook district and a Brookline, and all those different districts. And now everything is a little bit more streamlined. So we're hoping that the business office and also at the central office, under Bill's superintendent budget, which over the last 5 years has seen maybe a 5 or 6% increase. They've been able to realign staff in there, so they haven't had to add people, but they've been able to give us more services. And one of the things we hired, starting in August, I believe, was a facilities operations manager. So now there's somebody at central office that when Matt has a problem with the water system, like unfortunately Matt's been our principal in Dover for the Dover building for 3 years, and every year when he goes to open the school, he finds a water issue. But maybe not this year. And Tammy's had some heat issues, so instead of our educational leaders who are supposed to be leading our staff and our students, instead of them worrying about how to flush a toilet or make the water drinkable, that can be done by a person who does that for all the buildings. So we're hoping that's going to give us some efficiencies too. So that's kind of your budget in a nutshell. And then, did you have a question, sir?
Well, does this school have a special education room?
Does this particular building?
Yes.
We have a special educator.
A special educator, so you're just pulling kids from class and...
Some is the push-in model, and some is,
Right.
pull out.
So what I noticed is that in moving to this state and moving back to southern Vermont, our child who is autistic and considered nonverbal has always had the place to
Okay.
go in his other four different school
I need to interrupt you
districts.
for a sec.
School
We're really not
districts.
supposed to talk about specific students.
I'm not talking about specifics. It could be any student who's nonverbal and autistic. But
Okay.
these students don't have a place to go within these schools so they can continue to be educated with their brothers and sisters. They're being shipped out of district.
Okay, that's a specific question that we can't discuss. We can't discuss specific students. We can say in general
It's a certain
terms.
type of
Hang on a
student
second.
class.
In general terms, we have a special person who's in charge of special education throughout the district. And they sometimes will have placement outside of the school building because there's not the services available in a specific school building, and there's either programs or services in other districts. But we still take care of that. But it's not cost effective if we can put 4 or 5 students together that have similar needs with one instructor. A lot of times that's what they'll do. Instead of having 5 or 6 instructors in 5 or 6 different buildings for less students. But that's specific to individual cases because every student who has needs like that has an individual education plan. And that plan is written by both the parents and the educators, the administrator in the building, the special ed instructor. And that plan determines what goes on. The school board does not get involved in those plans. We're not aware of those plans. We know that there are plans, but we are just told this is how much we need to fund these plans, and we don't go into the specific plans.
Bless you.
Well, with all this funding, I expect that there would be certain plans set aside and made for these
And
children
there
with
is.
disabilities.
There is.
Well, not within the school, not within these
It's within the
walls.
school district. Doesn't have to be within the walls.
Well, not when my child's being sent out of district.
Okay, now we can talk specifically about your child.
Are you asking for like what plan, like what lane you should go down to help make that available in this school? Is that what the question is? Like
Within this
like
district,
like
right.
what
Right, what's their
who do you
plan,
talk to and
what's
how
their
do you
plan,
make
right.
that a plan that comes into place? That's what it sounds like your
Right,
question is.
exactly.
Like with you see the funding, so what's your next?
So why are we
goal?
funding to have our children sent away from the district
Right.
and not funding to have them
So-
placed within
So while
if-
this
within
isn't
the walls
so while
of these
this isn't the
schools?
meeting for it, I think the question is
The
how do you
question
make
is you need
how do
to
you
go,
make that?
you need to bring that up when you discuss an IEP. So any parent is involved in their IEPs and they have to sign off on it, and that's a place
You've
to
been to an
discuss it.
IEP meeting, sir?
Pardon?
Have you been to an IEP meeting?
Not in a long time.
Okay. They don't talk about that in an IEP meeting.
No, I think it's a school board question.
Yeah.
No, we're not allowed to talk about individual students.
We're talking about a class of students, a group of students.
Okay, and we have a special person who's in charge of special education who handles that, who deals with that at the district level.
Maybe that's who you should talk to then.
Yes, but they're also at the IEP meetings.
Well, no.
They actually
No,
are in
they're
charge of
The
the
person
They're
IEP.
not.
who's in charge of
Pardon?
all, so the person who's in charge of all of the stuff that isn't at all of the IEP meetings.
not.
They used to be, I don't know, because
Yeah, no.
again, we don't get told,
So
we
maybe
don't.
just after this meeting, you could let them know who the person is. And
Well,
We know.
Oh, we know who the person is.
Oh, okay, so then.
So we don't work with that person specifically.
But you have the ability to talk to that person.
I think we'd have more luck bringing the issue up here and planning for it here. To be honest.
Okay.
I hear your
Can
question.
they go to that person if they don't get what they need, they can come to the board following that? How does it work, the process?
So if you don't think what's happening is right, you need to go to your child's teacher, you need to go to their administrator, then to the superintendent. If after you talk to the superintendent, you don't feel like your issue's been resolved, then you can send a letter to the board.
Well, the superintendent won't speak to me, first of all. We have been through this.
Okay, we're gonna get off this topic because this is specific
I just
to
think
your child.
there should be planning and budgeting for all students.
There is planning budgeting for
But
all
not when you
students.
send
If
them
you
out
look at the
not when
special
you send them
education,
out of the district.
because sometimes that's the best thing to do with the student, that we can't provide what the student needs in district. There's just not enough resources to be able to do that. There's not enough people, and there's just not the ability to do that. Certain students require more that can be done in this building. And believe me, both Dover and Wardsboro worked very, very hard to be inclusive and not exclusionary. We've spent thousands and thousands of dollars and hundreds of staff hours to get away from people being taken out of the area, to be able to be taught in the school, in the district, in the classroom. And we probably have some of the best special education in these two districts, in the Dover and Wardsboro, or this district, in probably all of Vermont. We've had people come down and do studies for us, and our special education program has been complemented throughout the state. Unfortunately, there's just some stuff that we cannot do in-house just because there aren't the resources, and sometimes we have to go outside outside the immediate buildings to do that. And without going into specifics, because we can't talk about a specific
I
person.
thought this was meeting to create the budget so we could.
It's a means to review the budget, to vote on. So we do have money in the budget for some students. We do send outside for outside placement, and that's in the budget. So it is taken care of by the district.
It was advertised as a question and answer, just so
Right.
you know.
No, but it's not a
Just
question and
saying,
answer
it's not
about a
just
specific,
your- Yeah, no,
specific
I don't think
child.
he's talking about just his specific child. I think he's talking about the wide range of special education in these areas. And I understand where you guys are coming from, that there isn't enough of, there isn't, maybe if there was 30 children in our two schools of a school district that were autistic and nonverbal, maybe there'd be more of a need in the school, but that isn't necessarily the case.
We've tried, our special educators really worked hard to bring stuff in, try to do stuff in-house and send less people out. But there's, every case is a little different, and sometimes the best results are to go outside of the building.
And is that paid for by the?
Yes. Oh, yeah, no, we cover everything.
Yeah. I was just curious.
Transportation to and from. Any other questions on the budget? Comments?
So I noticed in the budget, there's a section with
What page?
page 5.
That one.
There's a section that talks about foreign languages, and I know that is an option in Dover. Is that something that is coming up to Wardsboro as well?
No, so what we,
Yeah,
Increase in the budget for it.
pardon?
Yeah.
I was hoping.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's in the budget, and that's something
Right.
that like.
So this is a
we don't
budget
put
for
it
both
over?
buildings.
Right.
So there's also a section in there for STEAM. And that's not done in Dover, that's only done in Wardsboro. So there are some things that are
Dover does
specific.
skiing as well.
Steam.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But that's
Uh,
our,
hey,
sorry.
Can I answer the question?
But they have funding for IB as well.
Right.
And we don't have IB funding, but we did get, we are looking at STEAM funding.
Right,
So-
because that's because when we
So-
first met with the parents, and we met with all the people in the district, when we were starting to form the district, what it was gonna look like, there was there was talk about having a separate focus in the Wardsboro building, and that seemed to be something that a lot of the people in Wardsboro wanted. And then when we asked the people what they wanted for that focus, they wanted to have the focus be STEAM. Hang on, you've asked me a question, can I please answer? So one of the things is, the IB program is an international type program. That's why there's foreign language there. That's why we have money for different technology stuff in the budget for the Wardsboro building. So that's why it's not available to all. Now, one of the things that's been brought up is that if you think you really want foreign language for your child, or the IB, you think that would be a better focus for your child, then students are allowed to apply to go to the other building as long as they stay in district. But if you live in Wardsboro, you can go to the Dover building, and you can vice versa from Dover. If you don't like the IB program and you thought technology was more of what your child would be interested in, they can come to the Wardsboro building. And one of the things we did is we put in a process to do that. And we did limit the number just because we didn't want to see a huge movement one way or the other that would affect classroom sizes too much. But it is something that we agreed to review every year, because if we had every student from Dover trying to get into Wardsboro, then we would need to maybe look at why they're doing that, and is the IB not the appropriate program? Maybe we want to do the STEAM or vice versa.
Well, we also, I don't believe that we had music in Wardsboro, you know, when the districts, you know, came together and such. And now we have
chorus.
We didn't have chorus, and now there's the chorus program because the teacher comes up here and does that program. So I thought that was something that we were looking at for foreign language as well.
I agree.
Because even though IB does say foreign language, you know, like that's something that a STEAM school would benefit from as well. And I think
Yeah.
all of these kids would benefit from across both schools. So, and I was at those meetings as well.
Me too.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that language is just important in general. And I also thought Spanish was something that was coming over to Wardsboro, that there was gonna be talk of the Spanish teacher. And just because we're not IB, I mean, plenty of schools are not IB focused, but offer Spanish at elementary level. So I agree with Kate. I also thought it was coming over regardless of our curriculum focus. Spanish or any other language feels like its own box. And then our curriculum focus feels like a different one. So how do we fix that for next year?
Shall we tell her?
We need to fix it this year.
You stand up, you raise your hand
Stand up.
at the meeting, and you say, I'd like to increase the budget by $50,000 for next year, so that we can offer Spanish language to our students.
Okay.
And then people vote on it.
Okay.
Also, you should talk to your administrator, talk to your principals. You know, this budget comes to us from the administrator. We don't set every line item. We ask our administrators, our principals to tell us what they need for
Okay.
their schools, and so they give it to us, so we rely on them. So we don't decide what gets done, they decide and we agree to it.
Okay.
So really just talk to your administrator, talk to your teachers, and come to, what Andy's probably gonna talk about right now, go to your meeting and tell them you wanna raise
At
the
the
budget.
town meeting,
At the
you
town-
said?
at the-
No,
at the annual
at
meeting.
Oh, the
school
one that's
district
skipped
meeting.
over.
You say you wanna
Yes,
raise
yes.
the budget by 15,000.
But I would, before you do that, I would talk to your administrator,
To see if it's something they even want.
and will they have the time to do it
Okay.
with the other time commitments? And then, that way, there can be a number and we can be told that ahead of time, because
Okay.
if you, like Rick's, example, $50,000 is, you know, pretty much a full-time teacher, three-quarter teacher.
You have a lot of Spanish
So,
for that.
yeah.
Just picking a number out of the air.
No, and so we would
I
wanna
think
look at
that's
it,
what it
we
costs.
would wanna, yeah, we would just wanna have a realistic number.
Does Dover have a full-time Spanish teacher? Do they have somebody that comes in like periodically, like the music teacher and the PE teacher?
It's not an agency fund position, it's a position we hire somebody at less than full-time.
You guys hire somebody less than
Not,
full-time?
well, remember, it's not
No,
us
no, no, I mean
guys,
Dover,
it's-
like as a Dover,
No, the River Valley's
Valley.
district
Okay.
hires them to teach at the Dover building.
so there's a part-time Spanish employee that River Valley pays
Certified
for.
teacher.
So they could potentially be a little more part-time if you have two
Yeah,
schools.
and the problem sometimes with specific people like that, just so you know, is maybe they do a day a week there,
Mhm.
but they're 4 days a week at the high school or something.
Sure.
So it's not always that you can get the same person, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things we were kind of hoping for as the district had more students and was bigger.
Right.
Even though we're in two buildings, we could share more
That-
resources. One of
That was my
and
understanding
again,
early on.
Right, and we're hoping a lot more of that's gonna happen in the future. It's just, we really haven't had a lot of time. We're kind of like fending off a lot of little things we're trying to deal with. And we haven't really been able to, well, you know, you were on the transportation committee. You know, we would have really liked to have been able to do a really deep dive in the transportation and see if we could have done something either more for the money we're spending or spend less money, or, you know, and it wasn't that easy to get
Right.
everything together in time to,
Right.
and that's one of the things we're hoping to be able to do more of as Lori's time frees up a little bit. And, you know, her staff, and then the operations facilities person comes online. And also as your administrators, you know, we have two principals we've thrown a lot at in the last couple of years. I mean, we asked them to come up with a second focus, we've asked them to plan it, and, you know, and again, I can't compliment them enough. And, you know, within months, they were ready to start doing some stuff with the STEAM. Not, like the IB program was almost 5 years in the making. And, you know, we didn't have that kind of wait. So, you know, there's just a lot of stuff going on, and we hope to every year improve a little bit. Unfortunately, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Sure.
So Andrew, I'm sorry.
It's quite all right. I love the fact that people are showing up to these meetings with questions and concerns. And I was wondering, I don't want to put a lot more work on anybody's plate, but you know, if maybe some of the concerns aren't ready for, you know, introducing an amendment at the annual meeting, you'd like to see some more communication before that happens. In the Articles of Agreement, Article 17 is local participation in policy and budget development. And it says that the board may establish for each school a building-based school advisory committee. The board will appoint members representing parents and the community at large to each committee. The principal will serve as ex officio member. These school committees will meet regularly under the open meeting law to advise the Unified District Board. Maybe something like that would be a good place for the kinds of questions we've been getting at these two informational meetings to sort of play out over the next year. Just a thought.
Thank you. Yes.
I had a question about the whole, I don't know if this is, but with you were talking about buying a new school bus, that whole situation. Are you guys thinking about maybe getting like a small bus to like help with like the busing people to like Brattleboro and stuff like that? Sometimes it seems like it's kind of interesting to have like a handful of kids on a huge school bus. Like it might be more cost effective to have maybe like a small bus that helps with doing transportation.
It's funny you ask that question. Dover used to have small buses. And we had everything from a van that was painted yellow to, you know, like they cut most of the seats out of the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a 28 passenger, 32 passenger bus.
Yeah, I lived in a few
And what we
buses.
found is the cost isn't all that much different than a big bus, and the cost to operate them is not that much different. It all depends on how many, you know, it's all by the weight. It's how much weight the bus is pulling. And the other problem we had is we would have a bus then and we kind of always plan for the worst case scenario. So if every student who could ride the bus showed up, would there be enough room for them? And then the other problem is one bus would get a lot more mileage than the other one. So we were trying to balance out the buses and the mileage and to keep them kind of similar without destroying one. So it's definitely something they can look into. But again, it's when we go to buy a bus, we've actually looked at trying to hire an outside service to just do all the transportation and us not have any vehicles. Remember, Dover had buses and Wardsboro didn't. Wardsboro is part of the West River group and they were able to take them on. When we went to the West River transportation people several years ago, they didn't have enough resources to be able to deal with us. The state of Vermont passed a law several years ago that said all transportation has to be done at the supervisory union level. And we actually get a special waiver, both us and Marlboro, because there is nobody who'll take us on because there's nobody that has enough employees, vehicles, and can do that. And again, the transportation thing, we're hoping that next year we do have a transportation committee, which sounds like you'd love to serve on. So, you know, definitely give your name to your administrator. And the girl right there is on it too, so you can talk to her. But we're hoping to be able to do a better, you know, would it make sense to do that? Would it make sense to have a van? Maybe, you know, the special ed transportation, Lori, one of the fires she wound up putting out was we used to hire just any parents, anybody who wanted to drive students to different other placements or different events. And there was a huge liability issue, so we actually wound up finding a company. That's why sometimes you see actually yellow cabs driving around a little bit. That was because for insurance purposes and liability purposes. So we also have to be a little careful too. And it's really getting harder to find people that want to work. You know, I don't know if you guys have heard the Kosmeskis transportation thing. You know, I'm a retired banker and I get to take my grandchildren and I drive bus. You know, it's really, I know West River Todd is having a lot of trouble finding people. And, you know, it's not really easy to find the people to fill positions. It used to be you'd apply, you know, advertise a position, you'd have 10 or 20 people applying. And then now for every 10 or 20 positions, you might get one person to apply.
Yeah. Especially in this area.
Yeah, so can we, so on the budget itself, is there any other questions on the budget? Yes, sir?
I just wanted some help in identifying certain line numbers that I didn't understand. Like 5219 HRA, I didn't know what HRA
That's a health insurance savings plan
Okay,
for the
and,
staff. So so you'll see that in several different categories.
exactly.
So we break it up, like in preschool, there's an HRA for the preschool people that get the health benefit. And then there'll be some in regular education, that's for the teachers that fall under there. There'll be some in maybe library, media. Wherever there's a certified staff member who qualifies for insurance, we have to offer an HRA.
And FICA is just federal income tax,
Well, it's a social security
social
tax.
security tax.
Yeah, it's not federal income tax. We don't have to pay federal income tax, that comes out of the check and just goes to the state, but we pay a share of FICA, we pay a share, we pay towards the HRA, we pay for unemployment, we have to pay some towards this workers' comp. So that's why you'll see a line item there, but like you don't see a line item for state income tax because we don't have to put anything in. State income tax, we take it out of the employee's paycheck and we just send it off, so it doesn't have a line item. We don't have to add anything to it.
Okay, and what's Beamer's 5224?
That's Vermont Municipal Employees Retirement System.
Okay.
And staff that isn't certified doesn't get to take part of the teacher's retirement system. So people like your administrators are part of the state teacher retirement plan. Those that aren't, people like your bus drivers, your custodial staff, and your administrative staff, not administrators, but administrative assistants, that's a retirement plan for them.
So like paraeducators, they're no longer would be able to be part of that?
No, paraeducators would be considered because they're not certified teachers.
I see. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Oh, just one more, I'm sorry.
Shoot.
Line 5591, I wasn't sure what that, it looks like a Public Vermont LEA.
Yeah. So 5591s, I have to go to my notes, but that's the ones we pay to the central office, right?
Yeah.
So those are things that we purchase through the central office. So if you notice, a lot of the line items are the same. So they're coded the same, they're just in different subcategories. So those are items that we pay to Wyndham Central. As it could be things like, well, 5591 is your
That's the agency fund.
agency fund. That's what we were talking about where we hire the band teacher.
And so that's why you see that in most of the other, all the other line items.
There'll be several of them.
Categorized
Yeah,
with these other items that I questioned.
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you guys are all set then, we'll move on to Article 9, which is shall the voters of the River Valley Unified School District set the annual tuition rate to approved independent schools at $17,990 for the, typo. Oh, you know what?
You had an old
I've
one.
got an old
You have an
one.
old one.
For the 2020-2021 school year, mine says 2019-2020. So this is, we kind of call it the Burton rate. So what we have to do is, because we don't have a high school, middle or high school, we're required by state law to pay the public school tuition rate to any public high school or middle school that you want to send your child to. So let's just say that you want to send your child to the Island Pond High School and the tuition was $39,000 a year, we have to pay that. We have no choice because it's a public high school. What we do is for all approved independent or private schools that you may send your child to, we would pay the statewide average tuition rate, which is usually less than what we pay for the local high schools. And we have to pay that rate unless there's another rate voted by the electorate at the annual meeting. So this article has to come up every year, and if you vote this article down, we'll only pay the statewide tuition rate, average tuition rate. If you approve this article, no matter where you send your child, we'll pay $17,990. So if you send your child to the Island Pond Private School of Pond Frogs, and it costs 30,000, we'll pay the first 17,990, you're responsible for the difference. And it's,
I'm confused. So do you pay for the tuition of the, or do you just pay the?
If it's
we
a
pay the
public school, they pay
tuition
it.
to any public high school.
Regardless of
That
what it
is,
costs.
that's a state law, you're not voting on that. The state law continues to say that you will pay the statewide average tuition in any private or independent school. If you want to, so which is quite a bit less than this 17,990, it's gonna be about 16 something.
The average is 16 to 46.
So we would just pay that, okay? But this article allows us to pay up to 17,990 if you approve it at the meeting. If you don't approve it, we go back to the lower number, 16.2. We use this number because both Dover and Wardsboro had become sending schools to Burton, and this is the Burton number. So Burton says if you pay 17,990 and you vote that, we'll take any student from Wardsboro or Dover. We won't say we're full. They've never been full in the past, they've never turned a student down, they tell us, but it makes sure that we have that tuition. Plus, if you send your child to Burton, there's no difference. If you choose to send your child to another private, independent approved school, and the rate is higher than the 17,990, that's all we pay, you're responsible for the difference. And this is something you're gonna see every year from here on out till the law changes.
So the variance will continue to be greater.
I'm sorry.
The variance for the district revenue will continue to be greater.
The variance for the, I'm not sure I understand your question, do you?
I don't
Not revenue. The-
This is an expenditure.
Yeah, it's an expenditure, so
That's
every year we
right.
take the number that Burton gives us, which this year is 17,990, and that's what we put on,
So we don't know if
On
it'll be
warning.
greater or not.
I'm sorry, say again?
So we wouldn't know if it'd be greater or not
If
next
what would
year.
be-
It will go up every year by a bit.
It will.
Oh, no, yeah, we've never seen a school tuition go down.
Right. Okay.
But if this is not voted in, then the children who do go to Burton, not only would the district be paying less, the 16 and change, but the actual price that Burton charges would be higher, because we wouldn't be an official sending district.
And parents would have to pay more.
And parents would end up having to pay a lot more.
Or pay the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, what we do is this number changes every year. I mean, I've never seen it stay the same. Some years it goes up more, some years it goes up less. But this is also a number that can be amended at the annual meeting also.
Just for reference, Leland and Gray's tuition this year is $17,900, so it's only $90 less than Burton.
Do we know what's like Twin Valley and Bratt?
Twin Valley's 15.5, Brad's 15,750.
But they hit the 16.
So, well,
Did they cross
so
the
it's with,
16
it's
River
close, so, you know, the other two high schools are a little cheaper, that most of our students either go to Leland and Gray, for public high schools, go to Brattleboro, Leland and Gray, and some to Twin Valley. And that number changes too by family and makeup. There was one year in Dover that we used to send a 66 passenger bus to Leland and Gray, and if every child rode it, there wouldn't be enough seats on the bus.
Right.
We've also had one student going to Brattleboro at one point. We actually had none going for a year. And then, you know, now Brattleboro seems to be a pretty big receiver of Dover students. Wardsboro, it's still, I think, Leland and Gray, but a lot of them are choosing Burton. So it'll vary. You'll see, you know, fluctuations over the years. If there's a big class, and they're all really tight, and the families are all really tight, a lot of times they'll all go, you know, to a same high school. We did have one person in Dover, it's kind of a funny story. His child wanted to go to Leland and Gray in the worst way, so he sent his child to Leland and Gray, and a week later he was going to Wilmington High School because it was 3 times in that week he had to run stuff over to his son that he forgot to bring to school, and he said, I've had enough of this, and I'm gonna run to Wilmington. I'm not driving all the way to Leland and Gray anymore.
Right.
So a lot of it's convenience for the family, where family works, you know, being able to pick up kids. But it is a really nice benefit, and a lot of people would really like to be able to have school choice.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, high schools like Leland and Gray has some really good programs. Leland and Gray at one time had a great marching band, you know, and Twin Valley usually always has great soccer teams, and, you know, Brattleboro has a career center. There's a lot of advanced placement stuff, you know, real big school. Burton has some really great outdoor programs that they're working with. So, you know, it's nice to be able to send your child to what fits them the best. We good with the tuition? And everybody's fairly used, if you've been to a town meeting, if you've been to a school district meeting, you know, everybody's familiar with this. This isn't something new. Article 10 is going to get a little confusing, so bear with us, okay, folks? So the voters of the River Valley Unified School District establish reserve funds as set forth by the school directors and fund each account with money in the current general reserve and special reserve funds from Wardsboro and Dover districts as follows. So before we go on, we're not asking you to raise any additional money. This money's already been raised. It's already in an account, a reserve account. What we want to do is we want to just assign it to different reserve accounts to better account for it, and also to better prevent Montpelier from maybe saying, wow, you got a lot of money, we need some money, let's take your money. So does everybody understand that? This is already raised, we're not raising additional funds in taxes. So we're going to ask for a reserve fund, and we're going to ask to fund it with $564,143. As an aside, out of that money that's in there, we committed $200,000 to offset this year's tax rate that we're currently in. So we don't know how much of that we're going to have to move over. We may not have to move any of it over. We may have to move it all over. We won't know till August sometime when the stat report's done and Lori closes out the books. But we did commit last year at our school district meeting for $200,000. If you look at Article 7, we're asking you to commit another $200,000 for next year. Same thing, same program. So out of that, even though that looks like a lot of money, it only leaves $164,143 total. Does everybody get that? Does that make sense? No?
No, but it's okay.
Are you sure? Okay. Then we're also asking, we want to have capital improvement funds, and we want to have two of those. And one of them is for buildings, specific to buildings. And we're asking that put $200,000 into that fund. So just as an example, Dover has, who would ever believe in Dover, Vermont, of all places, that you put a flat roof on a building. Not only did we do it in the 1970s, we redid it again in the 1990s. So they're flat rubber roofs, and the issue with a membrane roof is they work really well until they don't work, and then when they don't work at all. They're like, they call them a mirror, and once you get a crack in them, that's it. They're just done. And they're about $100,000 worth of roofs. So, you know, this is money that we will go to you folks before we spend it, but that way we don't have to come to you one year and say, wow, we need a roof on the Dover building, and we need a septic system at the Wardsboro building, and we need $200,000 this year. We have some money to start with.
And the lead in the pipes, like all, you know, like the lead levels were high and over. That probably needs to be remedied.
Yeah, but that's probably won't come out of capital because that's not that much money. We'll have to look and see, but that's something that the state set aside money for. So that may just be covered out of the operating budget. And then the second one is $100,000 into the transportation. And this is not to transport your students, but this would be specific to buy a new bus if we had to. Now, if we decide in the future that maybe we're not going to do transportation, that we're just going to hire that out and pay an amount of money every year, then we'll come back to you folks and say, okay, what do you want to do with this $100,000? Do we want to put it towards the building, or do we want to put it into the general reserve fund? Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah?
It wouldn't just go toward the cost of hiring that company?
No, that's an operational expense.
Gotcha.
So now you can move that into the reserve fund, and then we can move money from the reserve fund to help offset taxes in the future. Okay? Everybody, yes?
So even though you're breaking this lump sum down into separate categories, it's not irreversible?
No, we can change it every year. So one of the reasons we're doing this is at one time we had over $1 million in Dover, and I just can speak to Dover because I was on the board at the time. And one of the things I got concerned about is the state then started saying, hey, what happened to all this money we gave the schools that they didn't spend? So, you know, we were thinking that they may want to start looking, now, there's never been
So what did happen?
we've never had to report it back to the state. Now, there's some districts that have several millions of dollars. There's some supervisory unions that could build a brand new building and not have to tax $1. But we thought that if we had it in different accounts, that we could show that, hey, this wasn't just money that's just laying there, you know, it's money that has a purpose, that it would be easier to justify. So when we formed the River Valleys, we had a discussion amongst the board and, you know, whatever public was here, and we felt this would be a good move to do this. The third one, the special revenue funds. Now you're gonna look at this and say, 424, how'd they come up with that number? Well, that's how much we have in a bunch of different special reserve funds. So Wardsboro has some money that the Stratton Foundation gave them for certain things. We have some money for a music award that a family established 20 years ago in Dover. So a Dover student gets a $20 gift certificate or a $50 gift certificate. We had some Act 250 money. We started asking Act 250 projects. So they said, we don't want to make a payment just to go towards your operating budget. We want something you use to enhance. So we've used that like for the playground or to buy snowshoes for the kids to use during gym. So there's $29,424 in these 5 or 6 separate funds. There's some after-school fund money in there. There's some internet money that was made available from Dover to the school to pay when SovereignNet was building their big fiber optic network. And there's also a negative $1,000 in there too that we got to account for at some point. But Lori's going to do her bookkeeping magic and make that go away.
It's all restricted funds, though.
Yeah, so we can't just move it into operational, that 29, but we try to be transparent and upfront and really let you guys know what's going on. So that's why we're asking that it be funded this way. So this does not change your tax rate at all. So if you vote this down, you're not going to save $600,000 in taxes or $700 or whatnot. And
Money will just stay in the general fund.
It will stay in the general reserve.
It just stays in the general reserve fund, and it's not broken out.
Is that good with everybody? And believe me, this does help a lot because let's say 20 new students move into high school and we wind up running $100,000 over. Other schools wind up in such a cash crunch that they have to borrow money, and to borrow money is really expensive. It's funny, they don't give you anything if you put it in there to be in savings for interest, but if you need the money, their interest rates are really high. So this has really helped us in the past. We've had other schools, even in the district, that are like right at a zero fund balance. So if their budget goes over at all, they're really scrambling and trying to make up money. So, you know, we really should commend the previous Wardsboro boards and the Dover boards and the voters and the taxpayers, because we've set up some pretty nice nest eggs for ourselves. Yes.
I have a question. Who would I talk to, or how would I go about, like, if we needed like $1,000 put away for a scholarship fund for families in the program in both towns that can't afford to do the ski program? Because like in Dover, if you can't afford to do the ski program, then you have to pick your kids up at 11:45,
Yeah.
and that's it.
So
but
talk to
like
your
I was thinking, oh, I'll fundraise, yeah,
Yeah.
but like I'm
So you
really
can-
busy.
you can
Like,
fundraise
maybe if
that-
there's $30,000 floating around,
That's
we could just put
that
one.
restricted fund.
Yeah.
So
'cause then it
talk
could
to
just
your
help
building
families that
administrator.
are struggling. Who have,
Yeah, talk to your building administrator. You can do fundraising. If you do fundraising in the name of the school, it has to go to the school, and because our auditors and our treasurer has to be aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it can go into that restricted fund, and that it would only, so we wouldn't let it be used to buy the new bus. You know, it would go for whatever purpose it was given to the school for, as long as it's legal.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely talk to your building administrator and they can work it out with Lori. And then if you want to come to the board and just tell us about it, that's fine. But if the administrators approve it, the board doesn't, would be fine with it.
So that's potentially something that could be taken out of the capital fund to help. the local-
Well, you would put the money in. If you wanted us to give you $1,000
Not give me
of reserve,
$1,000.
well, to give the,
family.
if you wanted us to put $1,000 specifically to that, then we would have to ask for that, we would ask the voters.
That
But-
would get voted in.
Pardon?
So that would get voted in.
Yeah, that would have to
It
be
would
voted in.
become a
If you
line
wanted
item
to
in the budget.
fundraise and give the money and it'd be held by the school, it'd be dispersed, that can be done.
My point is that if I don't want to fundraise because I'm really, really busy, but it isn't fair that some families who have 3 children or 4 children can afford to send their kids to the ski programs, then they just are missing out on that extracurricular. I'm just wondering what category could that potentially be
Well,
taken out of?
that would probably come out of operational.
In Wardsboro, it's off the books, just go to the school club.
Yeah,
Right.
we have a
Which
really
is what I
awesome school
told
club
her.
that-
Yeah, which isn't.
Which doesn't help in Dover.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is. But
Don't
it's
you
not
have an
very
organization?
open. I feel like
Yeah.
if there
I
was
mean,
like
don't they
Sure.
fundraise for things like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So I don't know.
it just keeps it out of the whole school accounting.
Right.
Well,
Not
it does
that-
for now. Well,
For now.
the
For now, it does, right? I mean, there's
Well,
nothing.
the parent groups, yes.
Yes.
But there's
What school club
also
is.
some student activity accounts that need to come into the,
Well,
to different things.
Right.
But there are different ways of doing it.
So
Okay.
I think the question is,
Well, hang on, first off.
Raise his hand first.
Yeah, and then we had a guy in the back with his hand up.
So, if I went and I talked to my administrator about moving some of the surplus into a fund,
No, so I misspoke. I thought she was talking about doing fundraising.
so let me ask my question.
Okay.
All right. So if I went to my administrator and I said,
But then-
I'd like to move some money from this reserve fund, or I'd like to create another reserve fund, right? And the administrator says, no, we can't do that. Could I go to the annual meeting and stand up and say, I'd like to amend this motion to include another reserve fund and take, $5,000 out of what you have slated for transportation and put it in this special reserve fund to help families on a need basis to participate in the ski program. Is that something I could do at the annual meeting?
So, my first suggestion would be, go to your administrator.
I said that.
No, hang on a second.
Is that something you can?
And ask them, is there a reserve fund that has money available for a scholarship program?
All right,
Okay? I would start there.
right.
Okay. Yes, you can amend a motion, you can amend any motion, only twice. And yes, you could amend the motion to say, in this special reserve fund, I'd like to add another, so you would say that under the special reserve, instead of 29,424, I wanna do 34,424, and I wanna take that 5,000 out of the reserve fund, so that would only be 559.
Yeah,
You're making me do math in my head, which is tough. And yes, you could make that motion.
okay. Thank you.
But, and if you say specifically what you want it for, then, and the voters agree with it, then we would definitely do, we would support. We always try to do what the voters say. Just remember, on the budget and all these, you have bottom line responsibility. School boards don't have line item responsibility. So you can say, I would like to have you increase the bottom line, but you can't increase a line item. You can tell us why you're increasing the bottom line and where you expect the money to go, but it is the board's decision. You had your hand up and then.
I actually, another parent, and this is my first meeting, so I'm not too sure if this is something that we bring to Matt or not, but field trips, they forgot the budget for field trips in the budget. And I think
No, that was
this budget.
That was last year's budget.
That was last year's, not this year's?
Right.
Okay, so, well, the reason why I'm concerned is because my sixth grader is going on a class trip that they deemed to go to Lake George, but now it's become more like a singular, independent, each family goes, pays for everything themselves, and it's okay, now you have to pay up front by the 28th of this
So
coming
there are
month.
two different types of field trips.
And
There's
so that's-
school-sponsored field trips. So like in Dover, Camp Cawaden is a school-sponsored field trip.
Right, which we did
But
last year.
Right, but they do raise money sometimes for that to help out because it got very expensive and we were actually gonna take it out of the budget.
Mhm.
Then there's a sixth grade class trip, which is not a school-sponsored function. That's something that had been set up by 4 former principals ago, to just kind of celebrate the students that were graduating sixth grade, because that was really the last time they're gonna be together as a group. And back then, students hardly ever got out of the valley, so he's taken the DC, but we tried to plan a class trip to get them out of the area to see something they may not get to see if they weren't, going up with that class trip. So that is raised by the parents. It's not a school-sponsored trip.
Okay, which we're doing through bake sales and trying to create as much.
Right,
revenue
that's
as
why
we
you're
can
doing it that way.
In those avenues, those venues.
Wardsboro's the same. It's parent-led, and I've talked to Dover parents that it's, the parents take that trip on because it's specific to that class, not impacting the whole school. So we do, ours is set up a little bit differently, but we're also responsible for raising the funds for that trip.
I mean, bake sales theoretically can sponsor Six Flags, not the Great Escape Resort for thousands of dollars
Right.
in a 3-day venture, so
Well-
it becomes a little more challenging.
Yeah.
But, we've said the kids have gone to Canada before, so they're able to raise money. Nita?
So I guess the discussion was, does the board have the internal power to create and designate scholarships? Or it always has to be an article at an annual meeting that the voters vote on?
No. Question was, can we establish a reserve fund specific to that? And if so, I thought the original question was, can we fundraise for it and then put it towards that? And then it was like, no, they don't want to fundraise towards that. So,
I will.
pardon?
See, I will, I just was
Yeah.
wondering.
Okay, we all set? Okay, Article 11, shall the voters, did I miss an article? No, Article 11, shall the voters of the River Valley Unified School District move the district annual meeting to the second Tuesday in April? So here's why we want to do that. We started working on the budget in December. Our new district had only been operating for a few months. We don't have a lot of numbers. Something happens beginning of January every year in Montpelier. I call it a Kool-Aid Festival, but a bunch of people that got elected throughout the state go up to Montpelier and they make a whole bunch of rules and laws and pass a whole bunch of budgets. And they usually don't get that done until sometime in April, May. So right now, we create a budget and we're actually can give you an idea what we think the tax rate is gonna be, but it always changes and it's never been the same. People from Dover can remember years ago when Act 60 first started, we used to postpone indefinitely the vote on the budget. And we would postpone until May, because then legislature would get out, so we could give you exactly what our tax rates would be. So what we're doing is we're asking to move the meeting to the second Tuesday in April, so that we would actually now, we would start discussing the budget. So a lot of questions that you folks have been asking would be really good to have while we're first looking at the budget, not after we've kind of created a budget, published a budget, sent it out, and got prepared to vote on it, so that if we wanted to make some changes, if you wanted to bring Spanish in, you wouldn't have to stand up at town meeting or at the school district meeting and raise your hand and make a motion. You could bring it up to us, we can have a discussion about it, and we can say yay or nay, and then we can just add it to the budget. Once it gets to, the annual meeting, we've presented the budget, this is the budget we are giving you to vote on, because we have to publish it 30 days ahead of time. So, it would help us a lot to also have a better feel. So as I said, last year, we looked at a budget in December that, for December and the beginning of January, we got a scare that we had a budget we thought was gonna be like a 10-cent increase. Then we got some numbers that looked like it was gonna be over a 20-cent increase, and then we got some other numbers, we were back down to like a 12-cent increase. And when it all sugared out and the legislature got out and everything got voted, one-time money got approved, it was a pretty level budget. So if you go in and say to everybody, hey, we're gonna increase your taxes 20 cents, everybody's ready to hang us. If we can go in and say, hey, we're offering the same thing at a pretty level budget, people are pretty happy. So that's why we're gonna ask you to move the meeting till April.
Okay, so will everyone get a notice? For
Yeah,
that
just like you
meeting?
got a notice
Still
for this
getting, yeah.
meeting.
For this
Yeah.
meeting, okay, okay.
Yeah, so what
that's
would
no
happen
problem.
is instead of us having to have this booklet the budget voted on, the booklet ready by the end of January. We would have the booklet ready by the middle of March, and it would go out 30 days ahead of time.
So there'll be
So-
more time for discussion and for people to,
Yeah, and also the other thing that happened too is we formed two bigger districts. So in Wyndham Central, we now have the West River District, which is I kind of call it the Leland and Gray towns. It's not all of them, but it's several towns. And they vote their budget about the same time we do, so it does create some issues in central office. We haven't had our business people and our superintendent to our last few meetings because they've had some pretty important West River meetings. If you've heard about what's gone on over there, there was a big uproar because they were looking at maybe a 40-cent tax increase. And last week, when we were meeting, they were meeting and they cut a lot of money out of their budget, kind of late in the show. Which creates a lot of work. So we're trying to also spread it out so that the business office doesn't have it get like in December when you have to get your end of the year stuff done and you got to get all you've got holidays and you've got people here and there and everywhere. We're trying to put it off at a little bit better times. And it also, like I said, it gives us a couple extra months to maybe, deal with some issues that have come up.
Rich, you have a second?
Go ahead.
Okay, what?
Would that allow us to have more meetings like this since we're planning earlier?
We meet
Can we-
twice a month,
Twice a month, okay.
every month.
Open to the public.
They're always open to the public.
Okay.
The first and third Mondays of the month.
So we're off a little last month just because of Martin Luther weekend, and also we're required before the annual school district meeting, we hold two meetings. One of them we have to hold within 10 days before the vote. So we hold that at the town opposite of which we're gonna vote. And every year, the annual meeting moves, so in even numbered years, it's in Dover, and odd numbered years, it's in Wilmington, Wardsboro. And the only reason it's in Wardsboro in odd number of years is we did it in Wardsboro the first year because the governor was coming here, so that's when we formed. And so we'll always meet within the week before, we'll meet in the other town, and then the week before that, we'll meet in the town where we're gonna hold the meeting. So we always do two informational meetings, one in each town.
No, I was just gonna say, we meet first and third Mondays of every month. The first Mondays here in Wardsboro and the third Mondays in Dover. So those are open meetings and come anytime, please.
I just have a question about that article. I guess you just said, Rich, that you guys have done this before in Dover where you've had the vote in May? 'Cause
No, we have done that, but we've never warned it so that we never officially moved the meeting day. We would do it from the floor at town meeting. So what we're doing here is asking you to just do it now, and that would be our new annual meeting date.
And how would this affect us electing our board members when we normally do that on the floor?
It doesn't matter.
But we'd know it ahead of time in March?
Yeah,
It
so we would have a
it'd
new
still be
board
on
member.
Town meeting day.
Yeah, no, because that's when you vote for your members.
Sure.
That is one of the reasons too, we can't do it with the board members because by statute, it's when you're elected. But if you go back to the first four articles, or first four articles, it says for the fiscal year to serve July 1st. So when you elect a moderator, he's a moderator to the next, he doesn't take, so let's just say at the next meeting, you run for moderator and you beat Dr. Backus. You don't assume the position until July 1st. So you don't go ahead and start running that meeting because we elected you to start July 1st. Make sense? Yes, sir.
So what does this warning look like then if the meeting's not until April?
Same exact.
So it's next year.
Right, but you would have the budget and everything figured out isn't it the point to push this
Right, so we
published
probably,
budget?
oh, you mean what would the timeline
So
look
this
like?
warning, you have to warn for the.
Right, we have to warn 30
the
days.
school directors for town meeting day.
Yeah, it wouldn't be in the warning,
That would
because
be in the.
So there'd be two warnings.
It
There'd be a
is this
town
year.
meeting day, school
it
director
is,
warning.
it
and then
is,
there'd be the
right
warning
now,
for
when you go to your
April
town,
meeting.
when you look at your town meeting warning, you'll see at 11 o'clock, there's an article to elect from the floor a school director.
Yeah, Article 4.
And
So
you'll
those two would be carved out of this and it would just be the school
Right.
warning.
And then you also, in Dover, we have, on the town meeting warning. So the school board members also sign the town meeting warnings, I hope, in Wardsboro and Dover. I know we got 5 signatures in Dover because Andy brought it. And then everybody's supposed to show up last week at the town clerk's office in Wardsboro and sign.
I didn't have to, Alicia, I met her at the country store.
I didn't do it.
So we got 3 signatures on Wardsboro instead of all 6.
This is
So,
where we live.
yeah, so that would be a little bit of a difference, but.
Gotcha.
And the other difference is if the position changed, if somebody, like if I decided not to run, I would have worked on some of the budget stuff.
Sure.
But I wouldn't be there to defend it at the annual meeting.
Right.
Yes, Andrew?
Rich, that's an excellent question. And,
Make it dressed up for nothing.
yeah, you did a great job. And there's a lot of other sort of unforeseen consequences of voting our directors the way we do. And one question I've been thinking about, because of some of these unforeseen technical sort of difficulties, is whether or not we would like to vote our directors at our annual meeting. So in other words, we show up on February 11th this year, perhaps April, whatever, next year, and vote either from the floor or by ballot for our directors. It would be logistically much easier and cleaner, and you wouldn't risk not warning something properly. And it also might help with attendance at that annual meeting, because studies show that more people show up if they can make a difference, if they can vote on actual things and make a difference. And it might help the attendance for our annual school meeting if we did it that way. I don't know how people feel about it. I thought about bringing that up perhaps under other business at
Well, let's
at
do
our
that,
annual
Andrew.
meeting. Yeah.
So the next article is any other business, so that's when we would bring this kind of stuff up. Now, don't forget too, last year, like Andy said, is because we were required to, when we formed the district by the state, last year we voted by ballot in both towns, which was different in Wardsboro. So we went to the voters at the annual meeting last year and said, do you want to go back and vote for your Dover person at town meeting by ballot and the Wardsboro director by the floor, from the floor? And we had discussed that for the year, right after we became a district, even though we weren't operating. We brought that up several times, and the vast majority of people from Wardsboro, and we wanted to respect the individual towns because there are some differences. We were trying to keep things so that it wasn't a huge change. And that was one of the things, the people in Dover seemed to want to vote at town meeting by ballot, and the people in Wardsboro really seemed to want to vote from the floor and not by ballot. Just because it's what everybody's used to. But I will tell you a quick story, and one of our administrators got yelled at by some parents because in Dover, they said, it's tradition that we always have the graduation at the town hall. And unfortunately, they'd only done it for a couple of years at that time because town hall had never been winterized. So it was really never open. They'd always done it at the gym. And they were so upset that they had to do graduation at the gym. So I said, well, I've been to 12 graduations, and 10 of them have been at the gym and only 2 at the town hall. So if you really want tradition, it's really at the town hall. So it's funny what becomes tradition and what becomes the norm. So, we can definitely have that discussion. Will you look into that? Will you be able to have some factual information for us next week?
Sure.
So the other thing is too, sometimes we discuss stuff and we don't know what the ramifications are. We don't know, we don't know what the answer is if we can do that. One of the things I would love to see is that when we vote for the person, whether it's from the floor or by ballot, that their position becomes effective July 1, because that makes sense, because that's when the fiscal year starts, that's when the new budget starts. So your board, and that's why we changed the moderator and all those other positions to go with the budget year, which seems to make sense. But I believe we asked about that when we formed, and we got told we couldn't do that. So But again, you know, there was a lot of things they told us too, like they told us it was a merger grant, we get to keep the small school grant, now they're changing that a little bit. They told us we'd all get $100,000 each to do this study, and it was $1,000 each district. So, you know, some of the things the state told us weren't exactly as they told us either.
Is that through the agency education?
No, well, it's the state of Vermont. Don't forget too, the legislators make laws, and then the agencies get to make the rules that follow those laws, and then the courts decide if they really did follow it or not. So there's a whole, it's just becomes, you know, you change something in one place, but it affects a bunch of other different areas, not just the agency of ed, but sometimes human services and administration, so we've learned a lot. I mean, Andy's called, has called and asked questions up there in Montpelier, and gotten different answers from different people who work for the same people. You know, and we had a person when we were doing our study that did, who was supposed to be our kind of our consultant, who's supposed to know everything, and we relied on them for some stuff, and he told us there was one thing we wanted to do, and he said, you can't do that, you can't do that. We said, well, we're gonna leave it in the articles, because if we don't do it, we don't think we can get the people to vote for it. And we left it in the articles, and it seemed to have been fine, even though our consultant, who was supposed to be the expert. So I don't think there's any educational experts. There's people that know a lot, but.
Rich?
Yep.
Andy, when you bring that information next week,
sure.
Can you just include what it would cost us to run an Australian ballot election, since it wouldn't be run at the same time as another one?
Sure.
Well, we couldn't do an Australian ballot, because that would have to require a whole day, day of the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, we could. So what I wanted to do is just discuss possibilities, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that would be relevant. My feeling is it probably cost virtually nothing.
You would know when I don't,
right.
So.
But I'll look into that for sure.
More data, the better.
Yep.
Excuse me, so is there any more so that's pretty much gonna be your annual meeting next week, on Tuesday, 7 o'clock, Dover Town Hall, not the office, the one over by the library. Cool. Everybody, no other comments, questions? Sir?
Just, so all the line items in the budget, they've already been approved for 2021.
No.
No, we're
The
gonna
board approved them to be published and warned. So that's what we're gonna present at town meeting.
Okay.
The the annual school district meeting. The voters, at the annual school district meeting, then will get to approve them
Come to vote.
or disapprove them.
And it's Tuesdays when they vote, those articles will say,
Can we make time to go over this? Can you and I make time to go over this? Sure.
Are you happy with that, Bill?
Very much so.
Sure, I'll call you tomorrow.
We all
Thank you,
good?
man.
I know there's side conversations. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to say thanks to the board and to Anita and everybody else who put all the work into this. Fantastic. Nice
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
I'd like to say thanks to Lori for all the numbers.
So something, just so you're aware too, if you look at the name on yours, we had some lines move a little bit, so your last name is right, but your first name is probably wrong. I think mine came from Randy, not Richard.
No, but you added my ex-husband.
Oh, hang on.
Feel free to drop that.
Hang on. Wardsboro was, Anita cleaned up the Wardsboro
Yeah,
list,
all I
so.
did was match names with addresses, and if two people had the similar name and the same address, they got
There's no
one.
one on the mailing list.
Oh, okay.
What I think happened was one
Well,
column
he's on
shifted a
Jackie's
little
list.
bit. So got the last name and address right, but not the first name. Okay, thank you, everybody. We're gonna move on, because we
Thanks,
got
guys.
a lot of stuff to do tonight, so we appreciate everybody coming. And we hope you learned something.
See you Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday, 7 o'clock, be there or be square.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Can we add pay warrant?
Thank you. Oh,
Okay, yeah.
I should get it somewhere. It's falling apart.
Yes.
You can get rid of, under old business residency policy, you guys approved that last night.
Yeah, but we get some comments on it. We
On the affidavit, not the,
No, we didn't post it, we didn't approve it because we wanted to have it discussed. Did we vote to post it? No, I thought we said we wanted to discuss it here.
I don't think anybody had any issues with it.
I did read your article,
Yeah, I
man.
think that's my mistake. I thought you posted it, and then I saw it on this and thought, I was incorrect. I'm slipping.
Peter, what
Yeah, that's what confused me was right.
in the
reading
minutes,
the
did we
article.
move to post and vote to post the residency?
No.
I don't think we did.
I don't think that was voted.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I think that was discussed.
Right.
Okay, hey, Bill.
Good, then it's on there.
I've been quoted in the newspaper as saying something at a meeting when I wasn't even in the state. So don't always believe everything in the paper.
And
I'll run
Some
a
other
correction.
flip
I'll
flag.
No,
clarify.
you don't need to run a correction. I just,
and Bill, apparently
No,
you were at
don't.
our meeting last week.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Is that right?
Hey, you two.
no.
No, you weren't. At least not according to the paper.
Bill's saying, quick, make you move up here.
Come on up here.
Is there anything
You
else?
two are hiding back there.
We didn't mean to, I didn't
Okay.
expect that many. Did you add communication?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, members of the public, except for Anita, everybody left us. And review and approve the minutes of the January 27th, 2020 meeting. So obviously, we want to make a correction that Bill wasn't there.
Bill wasn't there.
Before we get to that, do you have the communications? That letter was asked to be read.
Yeah, I'll do
Okay.
that under residency.
Oh, okay.
It's specific to that,
Correction. Yeah, we're still going back up to the top.
yeah.
You mean the bottom?
So anyways,
Minutes?
I need a motion to approve the minutes
So moved,
As amended.
as amended.
as amended, thank you.
You gonna second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. So Dwight made the motion to amend it with removing Bill from the list. Rick seconds it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Okay, so old business equities, just on there for a calendar. Website design and communications is kind of the same, nope.
It's different.
Okay, website design, right, we're gonna,
I would like to get that on the agenda for our first meeting after our annual meeting.
yeah, let's discuss it at the next meeting. Next meeting, after the annual meeting, is gonna be pretty busy. So I think to give it the time it deserves, I'd rather see it go into March. Maybe our first meeting in March.
I think we can start the discussion.
Okay.
I can keep this start pretty short.
Okay, let's see, because we'll see how much we accomplish tonight, because we've got a bunch of stuff we haven't done for the last 3 meetings. Okay, so residency policy. So we had the verification of residency that we discussed at length at our last meeting. So everybody was pretty good about it, but one of the things is it is a pretty major policy, and we wanted to definitely bring it up in Wardsboro, but everybody left. So, remember that we're voting on a policy, we're gonna have to post a policy, and then the affidavit and the additional paperwork after that is more of a administrative function on how to show for residency. So we have, the policy, we've discussed it. Mark, I will get to this letter in a minute, okay?
I didn't see anything again.
I'm just letting you know. So is there any comments from anybody in the public or out there about the residency? Yes, Bill?
I just wanted to thank Dwight and Mark for their very extensive and thorough evaluation. I thought it was really helpful, the edits that were provided before you guys received the draft you're looking at. They took it very seriously and it was really helpful. Thank you.
I have a few more type ones, but just in the affidavit, not the policy.
Okay.
Okay, so the affidavit we don't vote on, so we can just give that.
Right, that's why
Yeah.
that's why I was.
Okay, how about from the board, besides Mark's typos, or the typos Mark found? I shouldn't say the Mark's typos.
I have one comment.
Go ahead.
We are
we are missing an other section. So we've got renters, we've got homeowners. We are missing a section on what I would fall into, where I'm living in a house that's owned by a trust. All those utilities happen to be in somebody else's name. The way I see it, though, that could be handled directly through the superintendent rather than in a policy or in the affidavit.
I think you're right, because having been a principal in a place that has this, you do have unique situations.
Yeah.
And you want to be responsive to your fellow new citizens. But I think that it may not fall exactly under one of those two categories, but it can be explained, you can add other things that add to it.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to bring it up, but like I said, my belief is that it can be handled on the procedure level, not the policy level.
So that would be, go ahead.
So you're saying, but based on the policy, you wouldn't fall into any of these categories?
I would not qualify
Okay.
for that policy.
Hang on a second, Nina. Because the other thing is, so like, what if I'm Bill's best friend from the Army, and then I move into Bill's house?
That's my
Because
question.
I'm down and out, and Bill says, hey, I've got a spare bedroom, you and your son can live, or I've got a basement.
Yeah.
It'd be a non-leaseholder category?
Right, but don't we have something like that in there?
We would ask them
You.
to.
Well, it would be in the affidavit, he's saying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
the affidavit is
like,
gonna-
in this case, a trust would have to write a letter saying that,
Exactly. We've had in the past
Yeah.
where, people will write a letter saying that this person is staying with me, and you just need to have procedures and policies in place to make sure that there are some hoops that are real that people go through.
And we had that one time, and then I called the guy up and I said, hey, you really wrote this letter? Because I know your house pretty well. I was surprised he would write the letter.
And as you guys all point out, I mean, if this policy leads to other challenges, then we'll just change the policy.
Good.
Well, could we put a stipulation?
Nita.
What's
No,
that?
I'm just,
Oh.
Nita had a
Could be a
comment.
stipulation where it said if we have a student who does not meet any of these criteria up to based on the affidavit, we can make exceptions or something along those lines, or we're adding a language, because you get in some trouble there, but.
So I don't think we, as a group, want to hear the
Yeah,
exceptions.
right.
Because, like, my child has some special needs, and my house we live on the second floor, so I moved into Matt Martin's basement for the school year, so then my child can get out and do stuff, and then that's kind of putting us, I think we need to maybe have, if we have to, then if our administrative team deems, the person to reside in Dover for whatever reason, that we can accept that.
that's how I felt, and I feel like that affidavit it requires enough other things, driver's license and things like that, I think that from a administrative perspective, there are enough arrows in their quiver to be able to make that determination.
Anita, did you?
Well, that's the category. It's occupancy or non-leaseholder or non-owner. Like if you're a caretaker on a property and you get a place to live on an estate, you don't own it, you don't rent it, you don't have a lease, you're just living there to be the property caretaker. You're an occupant, not a resident, or what are you?
Yeah, but you're supposed to get a W-2 to show the value of that, because you're supposed to pay taxes on it.
Right,
Yeah,
but,
So on your tax return for the state of Vermont, you're gonna,
right, there'd be a 1099 miscellaneous.
and again, remember, we're not here to run a school. We're here to oversee a school. Lori, you can leave, we're all set. No, I'm sorry, well, I know.
Budget's done.
Go. No, I'm just saying, don't, she's all packed, she's ready to go. I thought she was out of here. Lori, thank you, I don't mean to run you off.
Good night, everybody.
So there's, I think we have to allow our educational there's a lot of stuff that came up after Irene with families, there's a lot of leeway given to families that claim displacer because of, you know, and we put a lot of people up that's houses were fine, but they just wanna stay in a hotel for a while, so,
Yeah.
you know, but that's not for me to decide, it's, you know,
I think we're all pretty much saying the same thing.
okay.
Because we trust our administrator.
And just remember, this is not permanent, you know? If there are problems, if these things come up, then we would come back to you and go, hey,
Can't do
we need an additional.
This is getting abused, everybody, we've got 12 people living in a basement with children
Exactly.
in one house.
Right.
You would come to us and tell us that.
And the procedure,
If you
It
can.
does
For you guys.
ultimately come to us.
ultimately, because I've had a lot of experience now with this, is you guys are the deciders. We are the recommenders. We are the deniers or the acceptors. But
Yes, this
everybody gets to appeal to you guys.
Right, so this says it's required to fill out the affidavit, and these are the items that may be asked, may be asked,
Or
so,
missing.
so you're, you know, based on the affidavit, we'll make a determination of what they want, so it's, I think it's all in there.
Yeah, as we always say, the policy should be as broad as possible.
Right.
Right.
Because we don't want to tie their hands too much. Okay, so we got a letter to the River Valley Board. I understand that much discussion is taking place regarding residency and the financial impact of tuition in towns. The division between resident and non-resident for tax purposes can be a strain on the school budget and a concern for taxpayers. However, I urge you against taking up a more restrictive policy on residency at this time. Homestead is available to those who, and she's got in parentheses, own and occupy a homestead as your domicile as of April 1, 2020. Question, she's got number 1 from Government Vermont Tax Property Owners Homestead Declaration. That means you would have to move in the first 3 months of the year, which eliminates most homeowners their first year of residency in any new home. This policy basically guarantees that most new residents to any town would not qualify for homestead in their first year. Therefore, those residents are not paying the resident tax rate for the first full year their children attend town schools or receive tuitioning. Act 60 and the homestead tax laws are challenges we as Vermonters created. We created these problems on a state level, and that is where they need to be fixed. The new policy and affidavit taken from the Stratton Boards of Education is unwelcoming and almost an accusation to new families that their intent in joining our town is malicious. Is that how we want new families to feel? Vermont as a state is struggling. It is struggling to attract new younger generations to move here and stay here. Policies like this one almost guarantee that our town will struggle as well. Let's take a different approach. How about we welcome new families with or without children to make this town and their new or former second home a primary residence. Welcome them to bring their children, their business, their sales, and meals tax dollars here full time. Welcome them so their town has more power when we want tech companies to invest in our infrastructure. Welcome them so we have more students to diversify our classroom. Welcome them so we have more businesses and more customers for existing businesses. Welcome them so that we have a new generation of police, firefighters, and EMTs. Welcome them. I think I read that right, I'm sorry. There will always be people who will do things for the wrong reasons. Yes, there should be a plan of action should we find errors in residency. Yes, there should be a plan of action should we find errors. However, let us not spurn the good people in our effort to keep out the bad. Have our policy assume the best in people. Thank you, Lisa Mandino, Dover resident.
And we had 2 people that said the exact opposite at the last meeting, just for the record.
Yeah, I think there are some incorrect assumptions being made in the writing of that letter.
Yeah, I don't think we're trying to keep anybody out. We're
No.
just trying,
Yeah.
if you're a resident in Dover and if you built your house and you show your intent to be there, it's, you know.
Is that one, yeah, so I have a clarifying question. What does she mean though, so it takes a year to establish residency?
So-
Well, what she's saying is if she moves in August 1st,
Yeah,
so her child goes to school starting in September,
right.
well, you don't get to fill out your
Tax form.
until April 1st, because it's where you domicile on April 1st.
Right.
but yet you can still, people move into town, we don't have an issue with that. Just prove your intent was to really be there.
Your property tax form, if you've purchased it, a letter from a landlord.
We've given them other, the homestead thing is a really easy
Oh, yeah.
thing
It
to
just
use.
kind of takes everything else out.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier.
Right,
So-
so if they don't have the homestead, they've got other ways to prove it, and our policy has that in there.
Right.
So I would say that, yes, we have taken that into account.
I think one of the assumptions that she's coming up with is that by not having that homestead, that new resident is going to be paying the non-resident tax, which isn't the case. The state will determine whether they're a resident or not.
That's right.
But it still has no bearing on school stuff.
Right.
Which,
You know what I mean? It has no bearing on
Right,
what
that's
we're
a
doing
different-
here,
yeah.
not to shut down.
No, I agree.
And that is a state issue. That must be the,
That's part of what
up
she's
here
talking
where she
about.
says we create these problems on a state level, and that is where they need to be fixed. And I do take a little offense, I didn't create the problem. If they listened to me, we never would have had Act 16. So, excuse me, but they haven't made me benevolent dictator yet.
Try it.
Okay, so anyways, I think her letter is not, I don't, well, she's saying she doesn't like the affidavit, the Stratton affidavit too. But we're not voting on the affidavit, we gotta get the policy in first.
I would tell you
and-
that
and-
Mark and Dwight took a serious scalpel attack to the
Well,
affidavit.
and, yeah, we made it a whole lot nicer, but also a new resident isn't going to look at what they've got to do to become a resident before deciding to move here. So they can get that affidavit, once they've moved here, and they go to the school and say, okay, I've got a 5-year-old kid who needs to go to school. So I don't think that is a turnoff to people moving here.
It will not be deter them from moving here.
Yeah.
They've already-
So
Yeah,
let me
exactly. I would say also-
so let me correct something real quick
Go
though,
ahead.
make sure I'm right. So she says, I urge you against taking up a more restrictive policy on residency at this time. Our policy is basically the same policy both schools had.
I didn't touch your
It's
policy at
exactly
all.
the same.
Right,
It's the
so
same
it's,
policy.
it's the same policy,
Yeah.
so
Not more restrictive.
that hasn't changed, so.
What has changed is the affidavit.
And so this new policy, it's just a new policy because it's gotta come from Wardsboro and Dover into River Valley.
Correct.
I think it's a different number.
So I think we can let her know that it isn't a new policy.
No.
And that, the affidavit, if she has concerns about that, that's an administrative function. So she should express that to the administration, what she's concerned about.
And I would add that I think that the board has been very thoughtful in taking the original affidavit and structuring it to meet the needs of the River Valleys.
Right, we just didn't take the Stratton
You didn't
verbatim.
just boilerplate it.
Right.
So I feel comfortable that we've addressed her concerns beforehand, and if she had been at the meeting, she may have seen, we could have told her that, so.
But I think you're right, that if she has further questions about the affidavit, she can see me, she can see Matt, she can see Tammy.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I'd also take exception that she's suggesting we're not encouraging families to move into town. I think that we certainly are, and in no way we're trying to restrict any families from moving here. I think we want to encourage them, completely the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, we've done the
can't,
higher
we can't
tuition
ask them
rate,
that.
and
Right.
we've kept it, and we haven't tried to
And
reduce
we're
it.
expanding programs. And,
We're trying to
you know,
make- yeah.
Absolutely. We're not trying to
I
restrict
think
anyone from attending.
I think we've done a lot, and one of the things I want to talk about with the website is some PR work to increase that even more.
Okay, so I feel like we've addressed her concerns.
So do we,
I was gonna say, since we're on policies, I forgot to, when you asked for additions.
No,
or
we're on, let's do this policy first, then we
Oh,
can
okay.
come back to if you have
Okay.
another policy
so
thing.
do we have to vote?
I think we're ready to vote on this.
Are you?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
But we want to post.
That the post F13, as currently presented by the superintendent.
The policy F13.
The policy F13, correct.
Okay, so I have a motion, do I have a second?
Sure. Rick?
You can cut paste
Second.
now.
Now it really happened.
Rick's like,
Now it's
I
right.
foretold
Now
it.
it's right.
You made it real.
Now
You
it's
are.
real news.
I'm gonna read your stuff more
I
often.
know, there might be more secrets in there.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, good. Okay. Did you have another policy thing
I
under
did,
old business or new business?
both. I'm not really sure where it fits.
Okay.
It's the complaint policy that we spoke about at the last
Right.
meeting.
That's new business.
That's
Okay.
new business,
That's new business.
and I
Oh,
did
it's right
not-
there. Never mind.
Yep. Okay, so, hi Tammy. Your buddy left you?
Yeah, she's all alone.
I know, you wanna come up and sit with us for a little
You
while?
won't let Lori leave.
Just keep going on and on till no one's left.
Okay, so we had, last meeting, we had presented to us by both building administrators, their continuous improvement plan, and we just asked that everybody actually look at it and read it and give us an idea what you thought. Thank you, Nita. Oh, well, you had one more question. You
Yeah,
didn't-
I just wanted to ask you guys if you wanted me to write the follow-up after the February 11th meeting and get that all distributed.
For the bucket. right?
Bucketville said they'd hold it. I can shoot a short memo to the other news outlets, post it wherever I need to.
So,
Like a
we,
press release.
yeah, we hired Anita to do our kind of publicity around the annual meeting, and she says she's nowhere near the amount we budgeted.
Nowhere.
So it's not gonna put us over,
No.
and she does such a wonderful job with it. I'd love to let her continue this.
I agree.
Right,
And-
and on the contingency that it doesn't pass, and you gotta sit down and do it again, you'll be able to get that news out immediately with some other stuff. On contingency.
Why would you even toss?
Because
Why
I
would you say
said
that?
contingency. So I just wanna know your posters and everything worked out okay, your notices, your blurbs, you got what you needed, the press got what they needed, so I think
And
everybody.
we got no comments. We asked for any comments on the booklet, and nobody really commented on the booklet. They just.
Not this
Yeah,
week.
I tried to get that budget cleaner and, get rid of the colors and all that, so next year we know what to do
Yeah.
and make it perfect.
Okay.
Alright, thank you
Hey,
everybody.
it's a
Thank
really
you.
good job, Nina. I'm really glad to be
No, it
able
was
to work
fun.
with you on this.
I always learn a lot when I participate with you guys.
Okay.
But do you want the word contingency in the minutes in some connection?
You know me, I
It's
have to
transparent, baby. Put it in
cover
there.
all the news.
Hey, I think Peter's
Thank you.
walking
Good night.
stick is
Thank
back
you.
there if you want
Happy
to
to
take
see
it to
you.
him.
No, I don't have a walking stick.
Bye,
Oh,
guys.
you're
Right.
good man.
I got
Okay,
mine
so
back.
the continuous improvement plan, well, on the plan from Matt and Tammy. So we got to review it last time, but we've always said we like to do things in both buildings. So if there's no questions, we can just entertain a motion to approve those as submitted.
I'll make a
I
There was nothing that we.
And I'll second.
Okay, so Dwight moved, Mark seconds it. Is there any other discussion? Have you guys got any comments after the last?
I thought they were both very well written.
It's great.
Thank you.
As a non-educator, I understood it. So,
It was great.
It's always
Okay,
good
so
not
you
too many
ready?
acronyms, right?
exactly.
Are you ready to vote?
Yes, certainly.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, motion passes unanimously. We did the 21 budget information complaint policy. Brought to our attention after the last meeting when we said, hey, if you have a complaint, here's what you do.
We don't have a policy.
And for some reason, the policy never made it in transition. So, Bill has a policy for us.
Oh, he has copies of it.
So this is a standard thing that has been in the books for years and,
You're so good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
for years and years and years. The other one we had was much shorter for some reason.
Well, they redid it. This is from the VSB. Nothing
Yeah.
was changed.
The other one was like a third of this size.
Which is- Okay, anyways, so this is the one that Bill, so policy of the River Valley is to see that complaints about school personnel are considered in a timely manner that is fair to all parties. The district places trust in its employees and desires to support their actions in such a manner that employees are free from unnecessary, spiteful, or unjustified criticism or complaints. Resolving complaints should be encouraged first to bring the complaint to the individual concerned. If the problem cannot be resolved with the individual concerned, it should be brought to the attention of the immediate supervisor or administrator. The complaint should be in writing stating the issues and supporting facts. The individual employee should be given every opportunity for explanation, comment, and presentation of the facts as she sees them. If the issue is not resolved by involvement of the immediate supervisor, the complainant may refer the issue to the principal for his or her review and decision. In the event the principal review does not lead to a satisfactory resolution, the complainant may submit the issue to the superintendent for review and decision. In cases of alleged discrimination, the complainant should follow the procedures accompanying the anti-discrimination policy. Please tell me you have an anti-discrimination policy for River Valleys.
I'll have to look.
I think there is. When I
Okay,
looked
so
through them,
I
I
think
remember
that- I think
seeing
you
one.
guys did it in
So here's
17.
my new request. I've only been making this request for 20 some odd years. Please, somebody satisfy me once in my life. I would love, every time we come to a board meeting, no matter what building we're in, there's 2 books up on the front of the table. One would be a policy book of all the current policies, so we could open the book and see. And the second thing would be the minutes of the last year's meetings, so that if somebody says, hey, I think we discussed that a little while ago. And the third thing I would love to see is Lauren's articles, so that we would know what's gonna happen in the future. But anyways, I would really like that, guys and ladies, if we could, because it would just make this a lot easier.
I don't know if this is the appropriate place to raise it, but Matt, you had put together a great spreadsheet for the Dover policies. And I would love to see them for
We have
our
that.
policies.
Yeah,
It's called the table of contents.
Yeah, it's the website's one thing. But what he had put together.
No,
had
the table of contents is the policy book. There should be a table of contents.
in the book,
Right,
which we don't have.
right. But I think we're gonna see it the next meeting. I could be wrong.
Yeah, about
Lauren, we're
next
gonna
meeting.
see the policy book.
I'll say you have already. And
Okay.
then,
Then it will show up.
Yeah.
No, and
I
people
understand- I
wonder,
understand the text.
and people wonder why I enjoy school board meetings so much. If the above steps do not resolve the concern of the complainant, he/she may request a session of the board for the purpose of reviewing the superintendent's decision. If the school board decides to request of the complainant, it shall invite all parties involved, including the appropriate school and supervisory union administrators, to attend a meeting for purposes of presenting facts, making further explanations, and clarifying the issues. The board shall conduct such meeting in a fair and just manner and shall render a decision. It is the intent of the board and the right, it's the intent of the board that the right of the employees under collective bargaining agreement in Vermont law be protected through the administration of this policy. Okay, so I got a problem with this policy, which the other one was a lot easier to understand. This is fine to understand, and I think it kind of, some of it's more procedure, like, you know, having a hearing, what the board's gonna do. But this doesn't address if I have a complaint about something else in the
Right.
school. This is specific to,
Personnel.
right.
That
So,
was, that came up at the last meeting.
yeah, cause, and the last meeting, the reason we brought it up was because there was an issue, not about a person, but more about a program. Everybody stare at Matt and Bill for a minute.
See what they're doing over there.
Hey, quick, get them on camera.
I don't care what policy they adopt, I just,
No, but,
I bring it to them and they can make the call.
no, I know, the VSBA has more stuff in it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's more.
They don't, there is no model policy for what you're asking.
It's been, this has been
Really?
vetted.
Really?
This is a model policy,
Right.
but there is not a
Oh,
model,
okay.
model policy for general complaints. What Matt just shared was the old Dover policy, which takes the guts of this and just turns it into 5 lines.
Right, which
you-
was,
You could have that as well.
well, could we
And
keep,
since Matt has copies of it, I think it'd be a good time to share it.
well, so
That'd be great, so I don't have to pull it up.
can we have 2 policies?
You
Could
can
this
have as
be
many
public
policies you
complaints about personnel and the other one be public complaints about the educational institution?
Or just public complaints.
You can have whatever you want.
Okay,
Just take out.
Your person at the VSBA who overwrote this, the word complainant is not compliant.
Yeah.
If this is everybody's policy across the state,
It is.
they probably ought to
You beat
look
me
at
to, you
those.
beat me to it, I saw that thing.
and you went to Leland and Gray,
I
too.
know, and I can spell.
Where is it?
Can't.
It's in a couple of spots.
Yeah.
Matt, can you
It
pass
says-
yours out, please?
Matt's gotta
The
go to-
compliant should be in writing.
No, I
This is
see.
yours.
Okay.
This is just
Yeah, we're
yours from
complaining.
2005.
The compliant
But,
may submit. Ooh, that might get you in real trouble.
And
Can
it's
you do
different,
that?
like Bill said, it doesn't exist anymore.
what is it?
This is the old Dover one.
That's the old Dover.
The old
It,
complaint
Bill,
procedure.
is D10 considered one of their?
This is good.
Required?
recommended.
It's a recommended. Okay.
It's not required. But I do kind of like it because it gives a
Well-
little bit more guidance if your complaint is specific to personnel. It will help us remember that we don't want to just let them come to a hearing.
Well, I would think it's.
Can you make sure Peter gets one too, if you got an extra?
Yeah, I would think it'd be good to have a specific policy for personnel, and I think it's a good idea, but I also like this idea.
So
of a
this one,
procedure.
complaint procedure can just be apostrophe non-personnel.
Yeah, we could manipulate that one and just make it not about people.
Yeah.
And it's about people that have concerns. I mean, it's not even a complaint, it's
Right.
really,
Right.
you know, hey, I wondered why my kid didn't get picked till last in kickball yesterday.
Those are good ones.
Mark, did you say this was in the handbook? Matt.
This was a Dover policy.
Is this in the handbook?
It is not presently in any
I
handbook.
thought something was in the handbook.
No, we thought it.
No, we thought it was.
Okay.
So this is something, obviously, we adopted in Dover before River Valleys. I mean, you can see it goes back to '08.
Yeah.
And what it was is it was basically, it was our general complaint policy for everything.
That's
I
great.
do like the one Bill gave us. I do like the other complaint procedure. I don't want to become the River Valley Unified School District of policies, but we do get a lot of complaints, and I think before they come directly to the board, they ought to get to go to the administration.
I agree, I think we're getting complaints, that'd be nice if they went to the chain of command before they came to us.
I agree, I think we need an official
Yeah.
procedure for them to follow.
Well, you don't have one?
All right, so you want me to do like a work this up, so it's non-personnel.
Yeah.
And then that one that I showed you is one that'll be specific to personnel.
Yeah.
Great.
Except for the complaint, not the complainant.
The complainant.
Compliant.
Compliant.
We want them to be
You want the
compliant
compliant
when
to
you
be
tie them up.
compliant.
It's just
I
spell
want the
check.
complainant to be compliant.
Okay.
Well, spell
You
check
want a
would pick that
compliant
up.
complaint?
No,
Yeah.
right.
It's just poor editing.
Well, I mean, I can bring these both back to you guys here next week.
Well, hang on a sec. Are you guys okay with the public complaint one
With the
for
personnel.
personnel?
I'm fine with the corrections, yeah.
Okay, so that one again, because this is our first time, so we won't be able to do it. We'll do it the next meeting in Dover.
Okay. So I can.
But I
make it-
consider this one having been presented in Wardsboro.
Yes.
This next one, Bill, if you can get to Mattapammy, if you're not gonna make it, then we can discuss that in Dover, but we wouldn't vote to post it because it really hasn't been presented yet.
Yeah, I'll do it.
So is everybody okay with that?
I think that's fine.
Can we, for these, since we have to discuss it, post it,
Make it.
and adopt it,
Right, so you
Doesn't-
adopt it
doesn't-
after it's been posted.
but doesn't that give us enough opportunity to discuss it, that we don't need to do
We'll take care of
presenting of it in both towns?
Well, we kind of agreed when we first started that before we did any kind of policies or procedures or anything major, that we would present it, in both towns. We would discuss it in both towns before we move forward.
Okay.
So, I mean, it doesn't really affect us, and this will give Bill a chance, and they'll be adopted on different nights, so it'll give people more of a reason to come out and visit us.
Well, that's good. That's good guidance. I was good thinking of Matt. That's good.
Is everybody good? Okay. I was gonna do, I don't know where this fits in, but it could have been old business, I guess. So, I guess, following the last meeting, there was a letter from the parent in regards to the IB program. So, Matt said, attaches the letter you asked for from the parent from our last board meeting. In terms of data regarding the IB programs, we're now at the end of our second year, so we will be surveying the staff, parents, and students asking questions similar to those that were raised at the meeting in an effort to get a sense of community support. It is part of our reflection cycle. I expect the surveys to go out in March and be able to report the findings to the board in April. This should allow us to make programmatic changes. I should make Matt read this, or budgetary recommendations if needed. I met with the parents in the front row on Friday, had some good questions, and I think they're satisfied with my answers, and, I did receive requests for more detailed line item budget. I don't know how much more detailed it gets. Well, that's all the line items are broken down.
I assume just an explanation of the line items.
She thought maybe somebody in the board referred to that, and I just couldn't remember.
Well, it's in the old days, I used to have the whole
Okay. Maybe
cheat
that's what it-
sheet.
Maybe that's what it was.
Okay, so this is like 2.5 pages. You mind reading this?
You want to take the first couple paragraphs? We'll share the.
Share the
It has
reading.
come to my attention that you are unaware several parents have great concerns regarding the implementation of the IB program. I would like to have concerns regarding IB placed on the board meeting agenda where we'll be able to discuss all concerns within this letter and any other concerns brought to you from other members of the community. Please let me know when this can happen. I am unable to attend the board meeting scheduled for February 17th, as it is vacation week. I would also like this letter to be made available to everyone attending the meeting. Also, okay. First and foremost, I would like to remind you I had written a letter to the school board on November 23rd. This letter is in regard to another issue, however, included some of my concerns with IB. Within this letter, I stated the following. We also want to know your thoughts on the Dover School after the implementation of the IB program. We do not feel it is appropriate to force a child to take action on a topic they have discovered to be so complex. We also do not feel it is appropriate for students to be graded on who they are. Children are graded on being an inquirer, knowledgeable thinker, communicator, principled, open-minded, caring, risk-taker, and balanced. Giving a child a low grade on being caring is not going to help that child. Children who tend to be mean are usually dealing with a lot of hurt the school knows nothing about. Slapping a grade on it will only make it worse. My own children have come home feeling they are stupid because they received a low grade on thinker. I received a letter back from the school board dated December 17th, which stated, regarding concern about the IB assessment and grading practices, the school board has directed the administration to provide a report on these practices at the next school board meeting, which took place December 16th. Please notice that the letter from me from the school board was not only received after the next board meeting had already taken place, it was dated after the board meeting took place. Had I been made aware of the report that was going to be discussed at the meeting, I would have made it a point to show up and elaborate more regarding my concerns with IB. Unfortunately, I was not granted the opportunity. I would like to take time now to explain to you my concerns regarding the IB program and the negative consequences this has had on my children. My eldest, should we be reading something specific to their children? They gave it to us and asked that everybody be given it.
You should not be talking about specific children.
That, this letter has already talked about letter that was referred to in executive session.
Yeah, which is fine. Because it has nothing, it's general, it's about an educational issue.
You
It's
can
not-
read it without.
No, I'm just saying that
Okay.
information wasn't already brought out into the public because it had been in an executive session. Where,
No, but the concern regarding IB assessment grading practices, that's not an.
no, I agree, it wasn't the
executive
content,
session
it was just that it hadn't
Yeah.
yet.
You want me to take over?
No, because I'm gonna
He's
skip
on a
all
roll.
of this.
Okay.
The school had a strong, dedicated team of teachers. It was clear to us children were their top priority. There are many things I would have considered above beyond my expectation. Children in primary grades participated in an annual play, and the 5th and 6th grade classes put on an annual play as well. Not only was this a fun way for students to learn, they were given the opportunity to experience working together as a group, memorize lines, create scenery, and practice public speaking. When IB was first mentioned and the conversation started, I felt the program would exhibit little change as our teachers were already implementing the core values in the classroom. Children were already taught to think outside the box, to ask questions, to see there's a much bigger world around them. I didn't have any concerns other than it seemed foolish to pay for a program that sounded quite similar to what was already happening. Fast forward a few years. Staff turnover is ridiculous. There are 2.5 calendar years. They're just talking about the different teachers in the building. Enrollment is not increasing. It appears to be at a slow decline. This year, we had new students in every grade except for one, including 5 in the 6th grade alone. However, we lost more than we gained. Last year, we started the year with 93 students. Even though we gained about 10 new students, this year we currently have 90 students. Test scores are dropping. I am sure you've already noticed this. The question is why? Students are losing valuable classroom instruction time. Students are required to do several inquiry projects throughout the year. On top of that, sixth graders have to do an exhibition project. There are way too many hours being dedicated to these projects. There's a lot of time being wasted. There's no way for a teacher to know how much a child is actually reading when the child says they are doing research on their Chromebook. Are they actually reading articles the whole time? Or are they just scrolling through and not really reading anything? What about fundamentals? I want to see more time spent on reading, writing, spelling, and basic math facts, but we don't have time for that anymore. Teachers are showing signs of burnout. Besides the fact that we've seen a lot of staff turnover, I think teachers seem overwhelmed. They don't get the same feeling of commitment to the students they did before we implemented IB. If you look at the school website, you'll find it is very out of date. After clicking on IB from the main menu, it opens to a page which includes the statement, "We hope to be prepared for request authorization in the fall of 2017. I would have expected this page would have been kept up to date by the coordinators and would tell me what each class is doing. When you click on classrooms, you're given a list. First and second graders listed as combined classroom, which they are not. If you click on sixth grade, you will see pictures of eighth grade child's class and their homework assignments from 2 years ago. This is a clear indication to me of the overload of the staff. If teachers are so thin they can't keep their web page up to date, what else is being overlooked? Teachers are not implementing IB the way it was described to parents in the beginning. I was under the impression that becoming an IB world school meant we would see a change in the curriculum as a whole. It is a method of teaching, integrating multiple subjects into one. Students wouldn't necessarily have history for an hour, then work on writing for an hour or so. Their history lesson would incorporate some writing and everything would be flowing together. This is not what is happening. My children make comments that they had to do about what they had to do during IB time. They are also working on IB projects. The kids are making this separation because that's how their day is set up. Perhaps IB time is actually combining a few things, but the facts that there is a set portion of the day for IB tells me it isn't going as planned. Parents still don't understand IB. I had to go online to confirm how many units of inquiry there actually are. One would think, considering this is year 3 of implementing IB, and the fact that I'm quite involved with the school, I would know this, but I don't. After searching our website, I finally found a list of units of inquiry on an outdated classroom page. I was told at the board meeting on January 27th, 2020, you haven't really gotten any negative feedback regarding the IB program. This is due to a lack of understanding. How do you expect someone to argue something they don't understand? Unless you're one of the few families left to experience Dover before and after IB, you have nothing to compare it with. The program itself doesn't seem that bad until you factor in all the negative impacts. Our students still don't understand IB. They may be able to point out when someone is being an inquirer, but beyond that, they don't get it. My children still get upset when given a low number on a thinker or knowledgeable. To them, it means they are dumb and or stupid, and I can understand why. Report cards say thinker means to apply thinking skills to problem solving. How exactly can a teacher decide if a child applies thinking skills to problem solving? They have no idea what is going on inside that child's head. Students are being forced to take action on topics they don't fully understand. We experience this firsthand. It is required for students to have an action piece in their project. What counts as an action piece? That lies in the discretion of the teacher. Federal laws have been violated. Part of our sixth graders' educational record was published in a local newspaper without our consent. Students are being taught that if you had a few articles online, compared some data, and make a few phone calls to someone more knowledgeable, you'd be able to make a more concrete opinion on what you learned. It is commendable to try new things. However, it is wise to be able to acknowledge when something isn't working. Our children's education lies in our hands. It is our responsibility to provide the best education we can. I am requesting we remove the IB program from next year's budget school curriculum. So, Matt, you were doing some work on this. Why don't we schedule a board meeting to talk about IB? So, we have a meeting in Dover after the annual meeting where we can clean up anything that we haven't gotten done in the last 3 months because we keep putting it off. So Mark wants to do technology, we do that the first meeting in March. Is it
That's the,
just
Stan.
before town meeting, so that we could do the meeting in March. But you're putting out your survey, so you wouldn't be ready till April? So why don't we plan on having a meeting why don't we plan on putting this on the agenda and devoting a block of time to it, the second meeting in April? And would you respond to the parent, just let them know that we plan on doing that? And ask them to just take any reference out. Don't make it specific to their children, then we can use that, we can present that letter at that meeting.
Second meeting in April, you'd like them to re-present their letter?
Yeah, just take out the specifics to their children, just, the generalities, I think would be more appropriate, then we can hand the letter out.
April 20th.
Because I didn't read anything that was specific to,
I don't have a calendar in front of me.
So that would be our
About then.
school break week.
Right.
yeah, well, and then we're into May, so you're into graduation,
Well, I
then
just
you're
didn't know
into
if you would push the
June.
meeting back to the 27th, because there's still one more Monday in April.
Probably would.
Then I don't know why we say the first and third Mondays, because
Constantly.
half the Mondays we don't use. And not everybody gets breaks. Some people still have to work, whether it's school break or not. And, I mean, I don't know. It's up to you guys.
Well, we talk about it as important, I'm not sure I can be at that meeting either.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
On the budget, my understanding was, and I don't remember if the number was 4,500 or 9,500, but that's the expense, the annual expense for maintaining IB
I think there's a
certification?
$9,500 licensing fee.
Okay,
The 9,500 is just for the license fee.
and then there's all the continuing ed and,
PD.
yeah.
So obviously, I would like a chance to respond to this letter, because there are many things that are just not true in there.
Yeah, but I think if you just respond, I don't think it's what they're asking for.
Right.
I think they're asking for a meeting to bring up their concerns.
So you're asking to put something on the agenda?
For April 20th.
So-
What exactly you putting on the agenda?
A discussion about the IB program.
So it's an open forum for parents?
Right. So if there's a lot of parents that,
It might be weird if it's during a spring break.
and again, it'll be weird if it's not in Dover, if we do it in Wardsboro, and if you don't do it in April, then you're not gonna do it in May because it's close to Memorial Day, and then you're not gonna do it in June, and you can't do it over the summer because it's, school break. I mean, I understand, but we gotta, we've got stuff that we have to do as a board, and this is something we really should discuss, because obviously somebody spent a lot of time to write a 3-page letter, 2.5-page letter. I just, so anyways, I'll defer to the board, because I'm just one member. 1/6 of a vote, which is 20 per, no.
As a rule of thumb,
Like
I
your
think
25%
we
tonight.
stick by Monday and the first and third Mondays. I think
Well, here's a
that-
stupid question. Matt, are you around that day?
well,
I don't know.
I don't think that's a
April's the first
stupid
Monday
question
in
at all.
April vacation. I mean, it's not a contract day for us, so I don't know for sure.
I don't think your days are contracted as specific days. I don't think in your contract it says you'll be there April 1st through April 5th.
It's not a
I mean,
day.
it's just, it's X number of days for the contract.
Right.
Is there a reason we wouldn't do it on April 6th? I agree with you, we should.
It's in
wait.
Wardsboro. So, that's like, we're scared to bring it up in Dover where it's happening.
And March 16th's too quick.
Well, Matt doesn't have a survey.
I won't have data by then.
Right.
I mean, we told them we'd like to, do this with a little warning so we can have the data. So then what I'm saying is you're into May, so you're close to Memorial Day. I'm sure somebody will be at Kuwait, or there'll be
What if we
some.
switched April meetings, just in April?
Well,
Not the date.
No, I know,
The
but where we have it, but that, we've always
Yeah.
said the first, I mean, we're never gonna win. there's always gonna be somebody who's gonna be upset with the decision we make, I guarantee it.
I think switching the Woodsboro and Dover Mondays in April is a better option than doing the fourth Monday, personally.
The only reason I'm mentioning this is because in the letter, it talks about the inability to come on
Right, you have to
on
say
a
the same thing.
February 17th vacation day.
Right.
So we probably don't want to replicate that
Yeah.
and set it up for
Them not to
April
be able to
20th.
come. Yeah.
I think you're exactly right that we want to keep the consistency of first and third. And it is a switch, but I think we could give enough notice that the April meetings could be switched.
Or switch the meetings to the location.
Just the location.
Just
So you could do
location.
April 6th in Dover. That would give us enough time for survey?
Well, yeah, yes.
Not really.
Maybe, but it's tight. It's gonna
It
be
is.
tight.
Well, then do it the first one in May.
Well, is there any reason to just not do the 18th? There's nothing else on the calendar. May 18th is the usual third Monday. It avoids the vacation possible conflict. You can still have the vacation one on the 17th as planned.
May 18th?
So you wanna have just a special meeting and just do the IB?
Or just have it be part of your regular meeting.
But do it
Just
May
in May instead of
May
April.
18th. That way you're responding to the parents' availability. It gives us a little bit more time to publicize the meeting and get the word out and make sure people know and can be there.
From perspective of getting responses to your survey, is that a more comfortable timeframe?
I think so. I think May would be
Good.
April 6th would be a little tighter. We could probably pull it off,
But we want to do this well.
but we really want to do
You're
this
looking
well.
at
Yeah.
30 months of implementation.
I mean, this is a programmatic evaluation that's not that unusual to look at a program. It's something that we do all the time. And we've even talked about it you've talked about it as a board, you know, every few years you check in and see if the momentum is still going in the direction that you thought. So doing a programmatic evaluation is not.
I'm good with the second meeting in May.
May 18th.
But I just want everybody to know that I don't wanna hear in April that, oh, I got vacation scheduled, or, oh, wow, that's really close to Memorial Day, because that's what tends to happen. In the beginning of the year, when we reorganize, we say, we're gonna meet the first Mondays in Dover, in Wardsboro, and the third Mondays in Dover, and then we change them all. I mean, and we make a commitment as a board member to attend board meetings, whether there's school in session or not, and I'm sorry, but in 20 some odd years, I missed 2 school board meetings, and one of them I was out of the country, and one of them was my second meeting because I had made a prior commitment before coming to the board. So, we need to have a little bit of a commitment, because what happens is we wind up rediscussing the same thing over again, because somebody didn't make this meeting, they make the next meeting, they wanna make their points heard, which is fine, that's why we have 6 members, and that's why we invite the public, but, I don't know, it gets, sometimes I feel like we're paddling upriver, and the river's getting faster and faster, and
The issue isn't just the board members attending, it's also the issue of public being
right, well, and if it's that important to the public, they're gonna attend.
And I think from public's perspective, having the consistency is important also, so that they're not having to look up a
So
calendar every
they're not
month.
here on the first Monday of the month saying, I thought this was the meeting.
Right, okay.
And again, we've announced it, we have, I've never heard anybody come to us and say, hey, the first and third Mondays don't work,
It's, day after Easter.
May 18th.
I don't think we'll have it.
Is May 18th Easter's?
No, the April meeting is
Oh,
day after
yeah.
Easter, I believe.
So we should have lots of hard-boiled eggs.
We
to eat.
should, plenty of eggs.
I hope you're bringing me
Salad,
some, 'cause I
yeah.
don't have any kids. Go ahead, Bill.
Can the board give Matt permission to at least reach out to the parent? He
No,
he won't respond to the letter, because that would
Right.
be part of the discussion, but just so that.
But respond, just that
Yeah.
we can't hand the letter out to the public, because it's too specific. Maybe you can just kind of let them know, Matt, Unless you
Yeah.
feel uncomfortable, we can ask the superintendent to do that.
No, I feel like I can let them know that the board tried to read the letter but found that it seemed,
We can't be specific
Too
to
specific, yeah.
specific children.
could they create a redacted version?
Especially when they, yeah, if they could just
Yeah.
fix that for us so that we can hand it out,
Yeah.
because that's what she requested.
That's fine.
And we want to respect her request. And we do want to have a discussion, we don't want to hide this, I mean,
Yeah.
we want to be open about it. How's STEAM going?
Fantastic.
Thanks. I read that in the paper last week. Okay, are we good, folks? Okay. So, we have contractual. It's
Oh, continuous
after
improvement
9.
plan.
No, we already approved them.
We did, we approved them.
Oh, did I
Wait,
went to the.
you're out, you're out.
Great.
It was quick. It's the quickest thing we've done all night.
All right.
Bill, when do we see you again?
You'll see me on the,
Don't, hang on, don't pack up, because this answer is gonna,
Next Tuesday.
you'll see me on the 11th,
Yeah.
okay.
right?
Yeah, well, I'm good if you don't come to that, but,
You are?
yeah, I mean,
Thanks,
no, you know
Okay.
what? We've never had-
You're a district voter. You
We've
need
never,
to be there.
we've never had the superintendent at an annual
I would
meeting.
love not to be there.
No,
I would be there on this one in, so March
So the first meeting in March?
16th.
okay,
Oh,
so, I'd like to ask for an executive session on the contractual issue, and we'll make it short. But we won't make any decisions, so,
so moved.
No decision, so filming can go.
yeah, filming can go.